Hi, Paul.
Good day. Good day all.
Great. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. All right, I'm going to do the roll call. Trustee McHugh.
Present.
Trustee Gluck.
Present.
Trustee Burnett. Trustee Cohen.
Here.
All right, so I'm going to start with some comments. Thank you for joining us this evening. The economic reopening in our region is well underway. In New York City, phase 1 is underway. Therefore, people are out more, but we still have to remain diligent and make social distancing and wearing masks a priority. Now, moving on, I called an emergency meeting with O&R Monday because of resident complaints about brownouts and road closures. We'll address briefly the road closures later under road safety. John Ledwith and I spoke to their project management team, and I would classify the response as mixed. The brownouts have occurred in the area of Lookout Stable Road and Stable Roads primarily. Now, this area is not going to receive an upgrade this year, so they're going to be on the old system for a while. Because so many homes are online now because of home stay-at-home rules, O&R has never had so much stress on our antiquated system, especially between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. We're currently at the same usage rate we are during a July 4th weekend, for example. Now, they're moving quickly to upgrade other areas of the park so that the new system can offload some additional current to the problem areas. And to speed things up, we have approved O&R extending their weekday allowable work hours. And as a result, O&R said that within potentially 2 to 4 weeks, the brownouts should stop in the affected area. And that's really all I can offer right now after an hour and a half of, pretty stern back and forth. We also have spotty cell service in the park, as I've mentioned before. I've asked for volunteers in one of my mayor's newsletters and asking for a committee to address this spotty cell service. I did receive several good volunteers, and I will try and get this off the ground this week. Chief, can you present your report, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Am I muted?
Yes. No, you're good.
Okay. So we had 297 non-criminal complaints for the month of May. We had 2 criminal complaints. We had 1 motor vehicle accident that was property damage only. We issued 2 warnings. We issued 1 traffic ticket. We responded to 3 fires or fire alarms, 2 burglar alarms.
Is the audio on?
We didn't have any medical calls. We assisted the town of Tuxedo Police 2 times. They assisted us 1 time. I'm sorry. We assisted another agency 1 time. We did not receive any assist from any other agency. 0 shots fired. We had no FOIL request. We patrolled 2,556 miles. And the daily vehicle rate average was 1,173 vehicles per day.
All set?
That completes my report. Yes.
Okay. DPW Supervisor Jeff Voss or Trustee McHugh, would you like to present a report?
Certainly. I'm not sure Jeff's on, but if Just a couple of quick updates is Jeff, myself, Paul Gluck, John Ledwith have been meeting extensively with Weston and Sampson with regard to the control panel at the water treatment plant. We've defined the scope of work and engagement. John Ledwith has gotten pricing with regard to this, with regard to replacing the control panel. The prices range from around $80,000 to $140,000. We've engaged Weston and Sampson to drill down on the quotes we've received so far, and they've actually done a site visit at the water treatment plant and the Ridge Road tanks and the Pawtucket tanks in order to further refine what they think we need, one, to stay up to current standards, and two, what functionality we need. So we've moved fairly far along in that regard. We also have been, and we'll talk about this later, with regard to replacing the generator, which it does not function at the water treatment plant. What we're trying to do is we have two oil tanks there, one 275 gallon, one 1,000 gallon oil tanks. We're going to replace them, consolidate them into one 1,000 gallon oil tank in order to heat the water treatment plant and also act as the fuel source for the generator. So that will be, we've received a couple bids on that already. We're not prepared to make a recommendation, but that's a costing between $5,000 and $10,000 is the numbers we've gotten from that. Just to give you an idea, the age of these, of the oil tanks is in excess of 18 years old. We did look into what we'd done at at the DPW shed with regard to putting in propane. That really is cost prohibitive. Just to give you an order of magnitude, the generators we're looking at are costing around $50,000 to $60,000. A propane generator for the size we need, which is between 180 and 200 kilowatts, was over $160,000. So that really, the economics didn't make sense with regard to that. The other big thing we're doing, and John Ledwith will cover this, is we're refining our approach with regard to the East Village and doing leak detection there. We want to have some shelf-ready projects in the event that the federal or the state government comes out with funding or grant opportunities, which we think would allow us to go after these. Just to give you an order of magnitude, sewer grant, you get 30%, water grants, you get 60%. So that's what we're spearheading our approach with right now. The one disturbing thing we had was in the month of May, our effluent through the sewer plant exceeded our Speedies permit. We had to write a notice of violation to the DEC, and we have done that. That was the function of a couple of different things, 5.4 inches of rain in the month of April and already saturated soil. So that's quick and dirty.
Oh, thank you. Very informative. Some residents have asked me about recently paved roads and when the lines might go on. Do you have any idea?
I wish I would, and I don't have an answer. I can get one for you, but I don't have one, sorry.
Okay, terrific. John Ledwith, you please present your report.
Yes, good evening, everyone. We had one sale of a property during the month of June, the Radzienko property at 177 East Lake Road. We issued 3 certificate of occupancies, anticipating that these properties will probably be sold in the next 1 to 2 months. The Diem property at 16 Summit Road, the Cassis property at 61 Camp Comfort Road, and the Shapiro property at 107 East Lake Road. There were no stop work orders issued during the month of June. There were 3 violation letters issued. 2 of those violations have been resolved. The third one is relatively recent. I would suspect in the next 30 days that would get resolved also. We have approximately 10 projects that are at various stages of review and or construction, and no significant problems with any of those projects at this point. Regarding capital improvements, as Trustee McHugh mentioned, We've been doing some work getting estimates to perform some leak detection on some rather difficult areas in the town of Tuxedo, where our water lines go underneath the New York State Thruway, the railroad, and the Ramapo River, and also getting some more estimates, and also finding out more companies that would be interested in bidding on revamping the controls for the water filtration plant. That's a brief summary of my monthly report.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do we have any potential court appearance tickets for when the court reopens, or have we not been giving those out?
We have one appearance ticket that is open. I spoke to the court clerk about this today. She's putting it on the docket as soon as they have a formal docket, which looks like it may not be until September.
Terrific. Let's see. John Kay, are you prepared to present a litigation report?
Yes, I am. And so there are 3 pending litigations in the village. Miller versus the village, which is still pending. It's ongoing. The cases are starting to open up. But, you know, as of today, we don't have any updated status on that. Another case is Yaknowitz versus Tayback in the village. We've put an email out to counsel representing the village, David Posner, on that. We have yet to hear back, but again, courts are slowly opening up, and so we'd expect there to be progress, but right now it's still in discovery. And the last matter is Madden versus the village, and as of yesterday, the appellate division had reached out to our office, and the parties agreed, instead of having an oral argument, that the briefs were fully submitted, and now it's just waiting decision.
Thank you. Are there any committees that would like to report?
Mayor, I'd just like one clarification. This is from Judge Hazen, and what he wrote was as follows, was that the 9th Judicial District, which is Orange, Rockland, Westchester, Putnam, and Dutchess, are in what the governor is calling phase 2. As of June 22nd, certain small claims and dangerous dog cases will be allowed to proceed. I'm looking into the possibility of holding a court date as soon as possible. A June court date is possible, but I think it is more likely that we will begin in July, and hopefully everything will go back to normal. So that's the judge's estimation of how he's looking to proceed.
Noted. Thank you. Would any committees care to report? Is Michelle Lindsay on the call? Trustee Gluck, would you like to present anything regarding the town?
I think Michelle is at a zoning workshop tonight at the town. But you did ask me to bring to everyone's attention that this Saturday between 10 and noon, there will be an event, Moving Tuxedo Forward, that will feature presentations and discussions with respect to the town center revitalization, real estate opportunities, and parks and outdoor recreation and ecotourism. And it will feature, and I think this is a pretty significant achievement, Jen Metzger, who's our New York State Senator, Carl Brabenec, who's our New York State Assembly person, and our County Executive, Steve Newhouse. And it will include an opportunity for Q&A, so if you're not doing anything more significant, Saturday at 10 a.m., the login instructions are on the town website. And it would be great to have a showing as large as the one here tonight.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Trustee Gluck. Would any trustees care to present a report?
I'm happy to update you on one thing, and that's with regard to our I&I project. This is subbasin, or phase 3 subbasin 2 and 10. We sent out this last Monday an addendum to our bid package with regard to question contractors had. We've had 6 different bidders request from village office the bid package. The bids are due by 2 o'clock this Friday, where they'll be opened. From there, the Weston Sampson, who is the engineer who's we're working with regard to this matter, will make an analysis and recommendation to the board. So as a heads up to everybody, we will be having to have meetings in short order with regard to approving that and moving that project forward. We are doing a financing on that through the EFC. We're doing a band financing, which is 5 years, and then subject to how effective this project is, we might have to do additional remediation. So just to give people an idea of where the work's going to occur, it's Continental Road, Tower Hill Road, Circuit Road, Clubhouse Road, Serpentine Road, and Turtle Point regions of the village. And this is all sewage line and
Manholes,
pardon me?
manholes.
Yeah, there's manholes and realigning of the lines. So that's where we stand. So in terms of trustee meetings, unfortunately, we are going to have quite a few with regard to moving this project forward. As an order of magnitude for people to understand, the original estimate was $512,000. That's what we submitted on our grant package, and we've received a grant on 30% of that amount. So we received a grant of around $133,000. So we're looking to fund the balance, X engineering costs.
Terrific, thank you. Public comments. We've received many correspondence, pro and con, specifically about the Weewa Beach Club, which obviously we're taking under consideration. They're very serious to us. I know the trustees have also received many phone calls from people. Right now, there have been 29 emails in favor of opening and 16 against opening, and 1 for residents only. For my fellow trustees, several new came in after David gave us the count. If you have sent a letter in, my suggestion is that there's no need to repeat what you wrote in your letter. And if you have something new, obviously we're happy to hear it. Because I'm anticipating a few speakers, I thought we'd put in a loose 2-minute cap. And hopefully we can abide by that. So the comment period is now open, and we'd like to put it out to the floor and see who's interested in making a comment. Now, John, do you have full vision of all, like 80 people?
Yeah, I can see all the participants. And so if you electronically raise your hand, I can call on you directly, or you are free to mute yourself at the moment.
Right, so turn off your mic and make your comment, or put a thumb symbol up and we'll find that. All right, last call.
Sure, Mayor. Hi, it's Enrique Corder. I'll kick it off.
Hi, how are you, Enrique?
Good, Mayor McFadden. I just want to thank, obviously, you, Mayor, all the trustees, Chief Conklin, John Ledwith, the entire village government for keeping our best interests in mind. You know, when we're a relatively new family to the park, been here about 4 years. We have a small child. We have a small dog. Clearly, right now, COVID is most worrisome to us. The potential second wave, all the uncertainty that's happening around that potential second wave, whether people are really immune or not, whether people can get reinfected or not, all of that really worries us a lot. So we've come here to the park to seek safety and refuge. And it concerns me that we're considering in this environment the potential to reopen the Weewa Club to outsiders, right? I have no issue under normal circumstances reopening the club, but I think right now there's too much uncertainty. And then to add to that, there are a lot of other families that have come to the club or to come to the village seeking that same safety. Our streets are very full. We're seeing it with the brownouts that are happening across the village. We've had a couple of close calls in our family with drivers that they're driving a little fast on the roads. So I would just urge the trustees to please vote with our safety in mind. I think next year when things normalize might be a good time to reassess the opening of the Weewa Beach Club. But I think right now there's too much uncertainty to do so.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Jen Darling, your hand is raised.
Hi, I'm Jen Darling. I'm a resident, and I'm also the vice president of the Weewa Beach Club. I wanted to address a few of the issues that I think are out there. the first would be with respect to COVID-19. We did submit to the board complete guidelines. We modeled them after the state guidelines on a line-by-line basis, discussing how the Weewha Beach Club intended to open its doors, and that in conjunction with the opening proposal, I think we've comprehensively addressed all of the New York State issues, the health department issues, and how we intended to run the beach over the summer. One of the decisions we made this summer regarding looking to reopen, because we also debated it amongst ourselves, was precisely that the village had most houses in residence this year. And on a normal summer, you know that that's not always the case. And we feel that a lot of our neighbors are not necessarily members of the club and will be looking to swim at the Weewha, whether or not we open it, whether or not the Weewha operates it or not. There's going to be people, if they haven't already, that will be swimming in the Weewha. And the final issue I do want to address, to get out in front of it rather than behind it, is the traffic issue. So we've spent the last couple of days looking at our sign-in sheets, seeing who's arrived at the club and where they came from. And over the 63 days that we were open last year, we averaged 10 non-village cars to the Weewha per day. That was our average. Conversely, the police reported during the same time period 1,300 cars entering through the main gate. That's not the south gate, that's just the people that enter through the main gate per day. And when we take those 10 into the 1,300, the amount of traffic we're talking to the Weewha by non-village residents is 0.75%. So I just wanted to sort of put it out there that I think all residents are concerned about traffic, myself included. I bike, I hike, I run, I walk on our roads. So it's a universal concern, but if we're really talking about an average of 10 cars a day from outside of the village, and that's the impact on the traffic that the roads have, I want to be clear that it's not the perceived 100 cars a day that we're talking about. It's not a widely used area. So if anyone else has other questions for the Weewha, I'm certainly can unmute myself later.
Excellent job on the 2 minutes. Okay, who's next?
We have Elizabeth C.
Hi. This is Elizabeth Cottonmore, and Howard Shore is here as well. Our property actually goes across the road. We live on the Weewha, so we're crossing that road back and forth to access our lakefront to the house. My only request would be, because that property is also situated between two mostly blind corners, and we've asked in the past for speed bumps, but it didn't seem to be a possibility. But I'm wondering, with the increase in people using the beach club, maybe that could be considered now a temporary, or I was even going to suggest possibly making the Weewha a one-way, where you could only go around in one direction, because we had and dogs and ourselves crossing that street several times a day, and sometimes it was full of stuff.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
And Howard. Who's next?
Susan's iPad.
Susan's iPad. Susan, do you have your mic on?
The mic is on. So
Okay, Susan, are you still interested in making a comment? Okay, we'll come back to you, Susan, if you reach out. Anyone else?
no one else has it.
I don't know how to get in.
Yes, Mark. You'll need to turn your mic on, I believe. Mark, can you hear me? I think your mic is off. Okay, Mark, we'll come back to you. Who's next?
No one else has their hand raised at the moment, Mayor.
Okay.
I can't.
Who can't? And we'll put you in. Who said they
Jane.
can't?
Jane Garofano,
Yes.
we can hear you. We can hear
Jane.
you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm speaking for Jane and Neil Garofano. We've been here 37 years, and the WeWa has always been a part of our life. We do belong to the club, and that it brings its amenities with it. But the WeWa has been a very special place to meet family and friends that's environmentally friendly. In all these years, since my children, we were in our 30s and now we're in our 70s, I've never learned of any child being hurt or any dog being hurt by any car on the road near the WeWa. It's always been, I'm going to say, under-attended. Many more people could probably pack in there, but it's just been always from when my children were very young, did all their recreation, and now my grandchildren doing their recreation. It just serves, it's a community service, and that's where I see it coming from. And I don't see that there's any obstacles in the way because of the COVID-19. We spent a few years with it not having anything because of the condition of the water there, of the WeWa, and that was really very, very disappointing. And so now that we were able to get it back, I don't think that anyone would abuse the privilege. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next?
I would like to say something.
Who is that?
Yes, my name is John Stanek.
Yes, please, John.
Hi, David.
Hi.
I live in the East Village. We've been a member of WeWa for the past 15 years. And I just want to say, having the WeWa is an essential part of our summer. I understand that there are restrictions going on with COVID-19 related issues, but I'm confident that the WeWa Beach Association will take care of everything and practice social distancing to enable us to get out of our homes where children have been tucked away for the past 3 months and enjoy somewhat of a summer. As our governor and town representatives have alluded to, the towns are starting to open up. I think it's imperative to let family members from this community to enjoy a getaway to be able to access the WeWa.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Yes, Mark.
Yes, can you hear me now, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm a member of the board of the WeWa Beach Club. Of course, I'd reiterate everything that Jennifer had to say, but I'd like to address a point that was made by one of the earlier speakers who says he doesn't want outsiders in the village. I think that's an unfortunate turn of phrase to use. And if he's referring to people who live in the town, I would point out that the Tuxedo Club has numerous members from the state of New Jersey who come in at will. And whether someone lives in the village or outside the village should not be a consideration with respect to the board's decision as to the opening of the beach club. We should not be creating a dichotomy between us and them, especially in the current times that we live in. So I think that was a poor choice of words by that particular speaker. I'd also suggest the village has the legal authority to reduce the speed limit throughout the entire village from 30 to 25 miles per hour without the approval of the state legislature. And as a consideration in the future, in order to reduce the speeds of traffic in the village even further, I would suggest respectfully to the Board of Trustees that they consider imposing a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit throughout the village, which will create slower traffic on all the village roads. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, who's next?
Susan's iPad. We could try it again. I'm gonna unmute you.
Hi, now I'm on my iPhone.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Maybe this is working. Yeah, thanks so very much for this opportunity to speak. I been a resident of the village for well over 40 years, and the WeWa is an important part of life in the village, particularly now. And I think that between the Department of Health and the state of New York and the good work done by our Board of Trustees and obviously the board of the WeWa, that certainly a safe environment can be developed in which people can use this facility and enjoy the summer and enjoy the facility, which is critically important to us. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And how are we looking for additional comments?
Next up is Victoria March.
Hello? Hi.
We can hear you, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and trustees. Appreciate all the time and effort everyone has put in, and the board of the WeWa Beach Club, Jennifer Darling, and everyone involved. We come to this, I've been a resident of Tuxedo since 1970. I've lived here my entire life. Although I'm not here during the year, I'm usually in the city. I come home every summer, and the highlight of our summer is always going to the WeWa. My children come here now, and I went to recreation. They're, going to recreation, although it's not at the WeWa this summer or last summer, but we do go to the WeWa. We go to the WeWa almost every single day, along with my mom, who was, I think, the #1 person going last summer, who went there the most. So obviously we love it, and we really would appreciate it being open. As it's been pointed out, there really is not a lot of traffic caused by people going to the WeWa. It is pretty much during the weekdays, pretty empty. There were plenty of times when we were the only people there. So it is necessary right now because,
Mommy,
everybody needs a little break.
Kids want to swim.
It's been stressful for everybody, and we all love it. So I hope everybody will appreciate it and enjoy it as well.
Thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank you.
And who do we have?
Next up is Jessica Naive.
Hi, thank you so much. I just wanted to echo Victoria's point also. Just that again, it is obviously optional to go to the club, and the effects on the people who don't choose to attend. I don't think we've seen sort of a resounding point that for those who don't choose to attend, there will be negative repercussions for opening. And we've so much loved, it's not an everyday thing, but we've so much loved just the ability to have our daughter jump in the lake as a break from a normal summer, never mind a quarantined non-camp summer. So very much reiterating Victoria's point, and also saying for those who are not feeling safe, that again, we're all used to a 6-foot distance, we're all used to masks, there's a very trained population that we're dealing with here. So I think there's a level of responsibility we can expect and not be as concerned about, but for those who aren't, that the repercussions on them seems at best vague and unproven. Anyway, thank you so much again.
Muted for some reason. Okay, who's next?
Jedediah Turner.
Jedediah.
Hey there, thank you. So first and foremost, I've been going to the WeWa since I can remember. As a little kid, and always loved it. It's a big part of who I am. And last summer my children were there for the first time, which I'm very excited about. The one thing though I do think is a little different this year, putting aside COVID, is the volume of cars on the road. So. And I understand the stats, if there's 10 people coming, that's not a big deal at all. And I really appreciate that. That being said, our house is actually on the road to the WeWa Beach Club. My question to the trustees is that if there is a significant spike in the number of cars driving, we have 2 little kids, what will be done to help mitigate that. So it's not, so I'm not making a statement, but more of a question from the trustees, and I would appreciate some sort of feedback on that.
Terrific. Anybody on deck?
There are no others with their hand raised.
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to.
I think we have Jacob Matthews. Jacob, you need to turn your mic off. There you go.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, trustees, and everybody. Just briefly, and I had expressed my points of view previously in writing as well as on the last meeting you hosted. As a 40 some odd year resident of Tuxedo Park, I can attest that the WEWA is an integral part of our community. I think, given that the WEWA has been closed for a number of years or shortened seasons due to the lake levels being lowered, and now with COVID here, even more so now, I think families do need to get out for recreation. I think if the state is opening up and putting in guidelines for beaches and parks, et cetera, and the WEWA is being held to those standards, then I think that I'm in favor of having the WEWA open this year. I echo others' concerns about traffic in Tuxedo Park, and more so the speed of the traffic. And Chief Conklin was very responsive and receptive to hearing our concerns about that. So thank you, Chief Conklin. And I have a young son, and many of you know my mother walks the streets many miles per day, and there's concern about the speed at which many cars are traveling. So I think if speed concerns can be addressed, and if the WEWA board can address social distancing and spacing of people and timing of visits and that sort of thing, then I'm in favor of opening the WEWA this year with safety concerns first and foremost. Thanks for hearing my opinion.
Thank you. Would that be it, John?
I believe so. I don't see anyone else with their hand raised electronically.
Last call, and we have one more opportunity to bring comments in after some of our business. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. That was very informative. We're going to start with old business, and the first discussion I'd like to have is about road safety. And I think everybody on the board and everybody on these calls and everyone else is very concerned and always concerned about road safety, whether it's during the COVID matter or others. And as you know, since March 22nd, we've had the stay-at-home order, and we've seen a decrease in resident traffic, actually, a reduction of resident vehicles, but an increase in online delivery companies. But nonetheless, there's a significant increase in pedestrian usage. So it's possible that people that would normally be driving out the park are not. And so you have this actual meeting of enough traffic, regardless that it's less, and a danger because of all the pedestrians we have. So I decided to have a meeting with our chief, DPW supervisor, and code enforcement officer. And we were discussing safety measures, what's available to us. I brought in the experts. They know the history and success of speed bumps and other things, and signage and the effect that that has. And so after a long discussion, we came up with a safety package that includes stricter speeding enforcement, less warnings and more speeding tickets, for example. Part of the package is renting 2 portable solar-powered digital road signs to locate at critical intersections. These signs would communicate 2 things. So to me, it's a win-win. Road safety messages as well as O&R road closure messages. I was thinking that we would place them in areas where you could either go towards East Lake or West Lake Road. So that could be just after Pepperidge Road and Tower Hill Road. And the other one could be placed at the south end of the lake where West Lake and East Lake meet. We also felt that we should purchase a portable solar-powered digital road sign that tells you if you're speeding. Apparently, according to the team, they're very effective. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. It says our speed limit is X and you're going X. They seem to be very effective. With speed bumps, for example, you know, you slow down, make your speed bump, and then you tend to speed up to get to the next one to make up the time. I may be guilty of that. We also discussed reducing the speed limit to 25. And the reason is, you know, we think going 35 to 45 is too much for our roads. And yet there is a cushion built in before you'll get a ticket. So if we lower it to 25, our guess is that people will be going closer to 30 than they are now. Now, Mark, you mentioned that it doesn't need to go through the state. I didn't realize that. I thought it did. So I'd love to talk to you offline on that, because that would be important. Otherwise, it could be 6 months from now before we got permission and might require a local law. So I'd be very interested in talking to you offline. We also discussed in the package a series of road signs to identify known high-risk areas. I'm talking about signs that you put in with a post, permanent in other words, and identify curvy areas and others where pedestrians and vehicles have a tendency to have close calls, and we've had a lot of close calls. And those would be placed by the DPW and by the chief. So with that, I thought I would go around to the trustees and get their input. How about we start with Trustee McHugh?
I guess I'll start off with the following comments. I just looked at empirical data over the last 3.5 years, and I thought it's worth sharing with people so they get a sense of where we stand. With regard to UTTs, which are reported monthly by the police department, Jan through May of this year, we issued 6.4 tickets. If you take out March and April, it comes out to 10 tickets. 2019, we issued 16 tickets a month. 2018, 19 tickets. 2017, 15 tickets. So that's one metric. The other metric that's interesting to look at is average miles patrolled by an officer. This is submitted on a monthly basis and is part of the police report. Year to date, or our monthly average for this year is 2,183. 2019 was 2,481, and 2018, 2,485. So just looking at the statistics, what we've seen is we've seen a dramatic decrease in number of tickets issued, and we've seen a reduction in miles patrolled by the police. So I don't disagree that it might make sense to reduce our speed limit, but I think first and foremost, we need empirical data to substantiate that. We have a traffic counter. We should put the traffic counter around the park, get that data to substantiate and support whatever position we want. That's issue number one. Issue number two is, obviously, if we increase our enforcement and impress upon the judge that speeding is not tolerated in the park, that changes people's behaviors and habits. With regard to the traffic counter and everything, what you're suggesting is a $4,000 spend. I divide that into what it costs us to have a police officer on duty. That's $30 an hour. So we could get 133 hours of police officer on duty or 16 shifts or 2 shifts a week to increase our law enforcement, and rather than costing us money, it could be a net revenue positive and give us the benefit that we get people slowing down and respecting the law. So those are my comments. Sorry, and the last thing is Kent Krober did the signage slowly and gently, and I honestly don't think that really changed people's behavior. So whilst I think it's admirable, I think it became an amusement factor more than anything else, and became a theft element at one point too.
Thank you very much. Trustee Barnett.
Yeah, I'd like to echo a little bit with what Alan just said, but take it a little differently. I think that the mayor's suggestions about some of the procedures are well and good, and I think they deserve examination. But I think right now, we need to enforce the traffic. Chief reported 1 traffic ticket issued last month and 2 warnings. That's just not enough. I've sat in the court, and most of the cases that are brought in, traffic violations, are plea bargain. They're plea bargain down from a moving violation to a parking violation. So you get pulled over for speeding in the park, you get before the judge, and you're given a ticket for parking where you shouldn't be parking. And that does 2 things. One, it reduces the fine, and secondly, it eliminates any points. So we are not enforcing the law. And I think a really good way of correcting speeding, which is a real problem, is to enforce the law. I had 3 occasions to experience this personally. This afternoon, I walked around the Big Wee Wah, and as I was walking across the bridge between the Big Wee Wah and the Little Wee Wah, a very large truck, clearly over 4 tons and clearly over 30 miles an hour, went past me over the bridge. No cops, no stop. And that clearly is not a Wee Wah Beach Club member. It was a truck, a commercial truck, at about 4:15 leaving the DPW in some capacity. So if you ask Jeff what truck, and I can describe it, was carrying a liquid container, Jeff, I suspect, would know right away who that driver was. The second episode was coming across the causeway and seeing a delivery truck yesterday morning speeding by in the opposite direction, going more than 30 miles an hour. And the third was coming down Tuxedo Road and watching a car coming up at me with a residence plate also speeding. So 3 cases of speeding, well over 30 miles an hour, and the case of this truck violating the written sign, ignoring the written sign, saying 4-ton trucks over and not allowed to cross that bridge. So we need to enforce the law.
Thank you.
So,
are you finished? I'm sorry.
So that's my, and it has nothing to do with the Wee Wah Beach Club. It's just enforce the law.
Thank you. Trustee Cohn?
I'm going to echo some of the things they said, but I'm not going to repeat it. Number one, this was repeating. We do need to enforce the law. A caveat: I'd like us to be a kinder, gentler place, and it would be nice. I think it's effective to put on your police lights, pull somebody over, and give them 1 warning. That's very effective as well as a ticket is. So I would suggest, and I can't tell the police how to do the job, but that seems to me to be effective as well. The second thing I just want to comment is that I've observed that 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, like Alan, you said that Trustee Barnett had basically said that, people were clearly speeding. I know that I've passed pedestrians and I felt like I was going the speed limit. I didn't know if I was going the speed limit or not. I passed pedestrians and they've looked concerned about my speed, and I look down and I'm going 28 miles an hour. So that to me says 30 miles an hour is too fast, because I thought I was even going faster than the speed limit. So I would be supportive of, obviously enforcement of the laws with a kinder, gentler approach, 1 warning and then a ticket, and a severe ticket, as Alan had said, no plea bargaining. And then second, I really do think in a park-like setting like us, particularly with the number of people that seem to be permanently now walking around the lake and enjoying the scenery and landscape and forests, that we need to bring it the speed limit down to 25.
Thank you very much. Trustee Gluck.
Well, going last, I can be briefer. I would be in favor of a greater enforcement effort with the accent as outlined by Trustee Cohen. I don't think we have to give transgressors mandatory points on a first offense, but maybe so on a second offense. And I do believe that we have the ability to keep track of that, as I understand it. I'm a fan of a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Like you, I had always been under the impression that it took a great deal of effort in the state in order to achieve that. But if that's something that could be done readily, I think we should very much think we should explore that. Signs. I'm a little, frankly, skeptical on the immediate feedback on the sign. I think it's great if you have an area like in front of a school. People, when I see that sign, I slow down, right? If it indicates I'm going more quickly than the limit. I don't think it affects my behavior anyplace else than immediately around that sign. But that's just me. That may, other people.
And we will be looking for you. All right, I did take some notes. Are you done, Trustee Gluck?
I am. Quickest answer yet.
All right. So a couple things. I think you all make good points. One of the challenges we have is that we have something like 35 miles of road. I think that's correct. And we have one patrol officer. So Trustee Barnett made some points about 3 or 4 incidents where there were speeding, but no officer was around. Now, there's a couple things I'm aware of. We had a serious trespassing issue about a month ago, and both Trustee McHugh and I believe, had talked about putting dummies in cars and things like that, leaving them at the south gate, but there's nothing like having an officer there. So I do know that there's periods of the patrol day during each shift where the police are there. Now, this can be dealt with planning and discussing routes between the chief and the patrol officer. But I think we do have to accept that we have only one officer doing all the roads. And one of the things we've done is, for example, if you have one officer doing the lakes, because that's where the most pedestrians are, they're going to be potentially at the South Lake when something's happening at the Weewa. It's a shame. So the other thing that I think I've heard, and I'll let the chief speak to this, I think there was a period of time when things were very hot with COVID, where it came down from the state that officers should distance themselves from drivers and passengers to reduce the spread of COVID. But I'm not sure. So that might account for some of the lower tickets. Now, I think that the package of speed enforcement, which is critical, is supplemented by certain types of signage successfully. So without objection, I'll ask the chief to comment on his view about the combination of speeding and signage and things like that. And Chief, if you're available, you can turn off your mic and make some comments. There you go.
Yeah, so it's my experience that these flashing signs do work for reducing speed. As I've stated, I strongly recommend that the village reduce the speed limit to 25 miles an hour. And then our threshold where we issue tickets is much lower. So there would be greater enforcement. And some of the other things I just want to point out, which I'm in the middle of making a presentation to the board, a document within the next day or two. The perception of speeding isn't what we see. A lot of people say they see a car and they say, oh, that car is speeding. Like Trustee Barnett just said. He said he saw a car going over 30 miles an hour. I don't know how he knows that without having radar. But perception sometimes on a windy road, a narrow road, it looks like the car is going fast, but in fact, it really isn't. And I can tell you these past couple of weeks, since we lifted the COVID restrictions, our enforcement has been great. We've been out there, I've been out there myself, and other officers have been out there and running radar. And we've done 24 radar details in the last 2 weeks and got 1 speeder during that whole time. So I believe, the sign will definitely reduce speed. You have to move the sign around every couple of weeks, put it on different streets. But, and I recommend the speed limit be lowered.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. All right, so I guess the next step, gang, would be to put these things to a vote if we feel that we have a one, against, strong against, or for. So I will just go around the room briefly. How do you feel about purchasing a driver speed feedback sign from the lowest bidder? And a new one just came in called Garden State Highway Products. And that would be a cost of $2,975 for 1 unit. And $110, oh, I'm not sure what the freight is, I'm sorry. So would people be willing to spend that money? My view, and look, it's a lot of money, but it's also a lot of money when you get a lawsuit. If someone were to be heard, and I don't know what that lawsuit would be, but typically the village could potentially be involved. How do the trustees feel about a vote on that?
Mayor?
Pardon me?
Is that pricing for purchase or is that a rental?
This one is a purchase. This is for the driver speed feedback sign that the chief was talking about, whereby you would it would be set up on a road and it says our speed limit. And when you drive by, it says, Paul, you're speeding at 38 miles an hour. So that's one thing. Mr. McHugh, Trustee McHugh, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I had a question with regard, I know we have a traffic counter, Chief. Can we get an add-on to the traffic counter that would accomplish that rather than buying a new system?
What the traffic counter does is it gives us data for 1 week or however long we put it out for 1 week. It'll give us all the speeds of the vehicles, and it tells us if there is a speeding problem and the times of the speeds. So that's when we use the enforcement efforts, is during the peak times of speeding. It's very effective. However, when I just went to have it installed a few days ago, and we found out that the batteries no longer are working and don't recharge, and it's been that way for 6 months. So I just ordered batteries, and they will be here on the 26th, as soon as we can get them. And at that point, we are going to use it.
All right, so it does have the functionality, you can add that, or you haven't had a chance to check into that?
No, I know, I'm very familiar with it. I've used them in the past. It gives you historical data for the week of what the speed is of the vehicles and the times. The sign that the mayor is referring to actually just, it's so you police yourself. When you're driving down the road and you see the sign flashing because you're speeding and it tells you what your actual speed is, that makes you slow down. This other one just gives us historical data that you were speeding on that day.
Right, I understand that, but when I hear the statistics that we did 24 radar details and we only got one speeding ticket, that would lead me to believe it's a perception issue that people are driving faster than they are. Would you agree with that?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I believe that there is some speeding, but not as much as people think.
Agreed.
Okay, so I think, Alan, to further your point, the portable digital sign, which tells you what speed you're going, is something that would be very effective right before the causeway or in the middle of the causeway, because the lakes, the roads around the lakes are the most dangerous right now. And so that would be a good location. Something near the Weewa would be a good location. So, I mean, I think that there are companion packages here that would work well with enforcement. Now, Trustee, who did not speak? Oh, Barnett, Trustee Barnett, would you like to speak?
On the question of enforcement, Alan McHugh, you have these statistics, I think, readily at hand. I believe that the incidence of traffic tickets dropped markedly when Chief Alex left, and while we had no chief, we had no traffic tickets. So am I right? Are the traffic tickets that issued last September or October or November, what were they averaging?
Sorry. So to just kind of clarify it, it's when Sergeant Tabak, prior to Sergeant Tabak going out on workers' comp for his surgery, that is when we had some of our highest tickets issued. Subsequent to that, when we had an officer in charge, there was a dramatic fall off in that, and one could argue it was a philosophical difference, or people were respecting the laws. And one can choose which way you want to interpret that. We did not see we also saw a corresponding drop off in warnings. So obviously, that's it, as David pointed out, and the chief mentioned the COVID response. There were some direct messages with regard to not ticketing and everything. So that reduced our numbers in that regard in April and May. But that answer your question, Alan. It was through August of last year.
So I think right now we've had about 6 months or so with no chief and then COVID-19 of non-enforcement. And I think one of the things we should do is say, make it clear to the police that we want to go back to an average of 10 or 15 tickets a month.
If I may interrupt, I don't know if we have that authority to dictate how many tickets. We can say we'd like you to enforce the roads more strictly, but I don't know if we can do a court. Now, Maureen, Trustee Cohen, have you had a chance to speak yet?
No.
Okay, please.
So I think that what I heard earlier was that the radar gun was shot 25 times and only one speeder or something like that. And I think the statement from the chief was many people, there's a perception that people are speeding, but it actually, and that's the example that I gave, right? I felt like I was going fast because I was passing people and I was going 28 under the speed limit, but nevertheless, it felt fast. So I'm not convinced that it's that we need those signs at this point, and they are effective, as Paul said, while you're going through it. Not necessarily, it doesn't change your behavior later on. But what I would say is that there is a perception that people are speeding. It's not necessarily that people are speeding, and some of the data shows that they may not be speeding. And frankly, I think a lot of people are cognizant, a lot of residents and people that come into the park are cognizant about the number of pedestrians on the road. And as a result, they probably are slowing it down. But again, I think what I'm hearing, summing everything up, is that if there's a perception people are going too fast, then we should be lowering the speed limit, because we're probably going too fast, even though it's within the speed limit. So that's why I support the 25. And enforcement, again, we cannot dictate to the police quotas or anything like that, nor would I ever suggest that. But we should focus on enforcement with, again, a warning to those that for their first time offenders, there's no second warning, to get one warning is how I would approach the problem. And then if that doesn't solve it, I understand that those signs they're somewhat effective in troublesome areas, and they're very unattractive, but that may be a last resort, in my opinion, if we can't solve it by those two things.
Thank you. Now, I don't intend to stop debate, but I'd like to move on. We have a big agenda. So basically, what I'm asking for in this package are digital signage that we could use to direct traffic for O&R outages, road outages, and safety information located at critical places, and a message board that tells you what speed you're going, and a number of $1,000 to put other safety signs in areas that are critical and dangerous. So this is what I'm presenting as a package. I think it's all important, and it should be combined with a speed limit and with enforcement. But I see none of them working well alone, and I'm very concerned about the traffic right now with pedestrians, and I want to do everything I possibly can and err on the side of caution. And we're also talking in context about the traffic and the Weewa Beach Club. And so I just want to make sure that, that we support that argument with putting in a complete package, in my view. So it sounds like I don't have that kind of support.
No, I'll second it. Put a motion.
Do we have enough support to pass any of these?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So I've been persuaded, listening to the chief in the discussion here, that I would, I could see the utility of the driver feedback sign. And I think I don't know what's that much more would be gained by waiting, the additional months of seeing what the effect of enforcement would be. It's relatively inexpensive, as opposed to the other signs, which I thought were relatively expensive for what they did. So I think I would support the driver feedback sign, and hopefully in conjunction with looking more closely at lowering our speed limit.
And so would I.
Thank you both. And I think that my only concern about enforcement, which I completely support, is that we have so many miles of roads. It's really hard for one patrol officer to be everywhere. But that said, does anyone that means we have a majority for the digital sign for speed? Is that correct, Trustee Barnett?
Yes.
Okay. So,
sorry, David, to that
yes,
point,
sir.
Do we have 3 bids and all of that procedure?
Yeah, let me look at that. We're talking about the driver feedback sign. So we had 2 bids, 3 bids, and then I just got a 4th, which I emailed, I believe, at the last minute. It's Garden State Highway Products, and it was the lowest bidder for 1 unit at $2,957. Oh no, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, $1,040. And they have a smaller one that would be $795. So
just to be clear, David, these are rentals. These aren't purchases.
That is correct. These are referring to the signage, digital signage boards, and they are rental. And I was thinking we should rent it for 1 month and see if it's effective, and then reevaluate. Again, I think there's a dual use. One, sharing information about O&R road closures before you get halfway around the lake and realize you have to turn back, and also safety measures. Pedestrians, slow down. So yeah, so that would be that, and then the message sign is let's see. We have $1,000 I'd like to allocate as a not to exceed for road signage. And so why don't I get these organized for us, and we can then vote on them later after we move through the agenda. How's that for everybody?
Good. Can I just ask one question before we move on?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know, I'm just asking this, but because we found out with the Booth Project actually, that we do have to get bar approval technically, unless we vote again, not needing it for certain things. I don't know if posting a sign like this, maybe because it's a temporary sign, we need to get bar approval. So I just put that out there as a question mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could be so, but you know, these things aren't great looking. I mean, people have seen them, and I don't know if I would want to. I don't know. It's a piece of equipment. It's not really a house or something built, but we can address that. Yes, Trustee McHugh.
I just got one question, because it sounds like there's a complete disconnect between the O&R operation guys, Hagelin Enterprises, communicating with the village with regard to road closures. Can we either get them to enhance their communication so when we issue a code red, it's not the day of, it's a couple of days in advance? Or ideally, and I think it kind of skins a couple of different cats, is to get them to pay for this because they're creating the hazard and they're on site, and what you're looking for is signage for road closures as a result of their work. Given we haven't signed the Hagelin agreement, I would have thought this would be an opportune time to try to put that into that agreement.
Those are very good points, Trustee McHugh. Just to give you a little history, in the 2 meetings I've had with O&R, they said that they do not, never have, and will not pay for any digital portable signs. That was the first meeting. The second meeting, I offered to split it, and they said absolutely not. And the safety is so important to me, I figured, you know, we could do it ourselves. So that's absolutely true. And the manager said that we would have to take the discussion offline. And so we could ask a third time. I'm not optimistic. But the issues with the traffic guards are that, one example, the other day, the workers stopped and they left 2 signs that the roads were closed on a road they weren't working on. The other thing that's happened is that they were working on Westlake Road near Regna, and I asked them numerous times to move the flagman down towards the club, which they didn't feel would be helpful because cars would be stopping and asking. And so what occurs is that, let's say someone is coming into the park to visit the Martins, who live up the hill, and they drive around and they are near the Martins by 200 or 300 feet, and the flagman says, sorry, we're closed. So that results in them going all the way back around the lake, which is a 5-mile lake, to get 100 feet past where the road was closed, and also coming the other way that happens. So my goal is to get these signs at these critical intersections. So for example, in the South Lake, before you choose to go East Lake or West Lake, there would be a sign saying East Lake is only open through blank, or West Lake is only open through blank. So you can make a decision on what's most efficient to get you somewhere. And it's caused quite a bit of frustration. So I propose that we table these resolutions till later in the meeting, potentially after we come out of executive session, just to give me an opportunity to clean them up for us. And without objection, I'd like to move on to the next agenda item. Any objection to move on to the WEWA?
No.
Okay, so the resolution is to open the WEWA Beach Club, and that needs to be voted on. And as I mentioned earlier, we've taken into account all of the written and verbal comments we've got. We've all received many. We're all sensitive to it, and we really appreciate it, as well as the comments we're hearing tonight. Now, does anyone from the Beach Club care to review any of their COVID-19 mitigation plans? My point being that I know, because I've seen them, that they meet and potentially exceed the state guidelines. I also know that the state has already approved several weeks ago reopening parks and beaches. And now what happens next is that the beach club has to submit their COVID plan to the health department. So if the health department doesn't approve it, it means that it's light and needs to have additional mitigation in it. And I have to say that one thing that keeps me up at night is because we live behind the gates, I believe we have a false sense of security that we won't catch or spread COVID. You know, many of us talk to our landscapers and contractors and housekeepers, delivery people. Some of us have been gathering in places on the club lawn, for example, tennis courts, golf course. We have no idea where these vendors live. Many of them live in Suffern and Rockland County, which has been a hotbed for the virus. So I just want to balance our behavior and concerns about opening the beach club when in fact we're also taking risks right now. And so I just wanted to make that point. And then I thought I would ask Trustee McHugh to start, followed by Trustee Cohn, Gluck, and Barnett to hear any comments they may have.
I really don't have too many comments. I certainly appreciate efforts WeWa Beach Club has made to address the issues and try to make the opening a possibility. I also have received an enormous amount of calls from residents with regard to concerns about traffic and increased flow. I hear what people said with regard to only being 10 vehicles, but I think there's a lot of different reasons for that. I mean, the membership got decimated. One, as Susan Goodfellow reported, or somebody mentioned, with regard to health department issues with the water quality. Thank God that's been resolved. And then we moved from there to the dam repairs and drawing down of the WeWa Dam, which was 17 feet below its historical norm for just over 2 years as we worked through that process on remediating it. The good news is that's finally been resolved. But I'm certainly cognizant of that issue. I'm certainly not a fan of the discussion points that have been brought up with regard to access through the North Gate. That is through a restricted area. It's through an area that's chained off. We run our sewer plant there. We have open air, raw and treated sewage there, which is a huge liability for anybody. We also have, and we're in the midst of trying to get a licensing agreement with Hagelin, which is the subcontractor for O&R, with regard to secure storage of a lot of the electrical work that they're doing within the infrastructure of the park. So we have huge sluggish issues there. We have no camera set up there currently. And if we were to open the North Gate, as far as I'm concerned, a public or resident security is paramount, and we'd need a police officer posted there. So a lot of different variables would need to occur to make that a viable option as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cohn, would you like to comment?
Yeah, so there's been two major issues raised. And again, I'm not going to repeat what Alan says, but I do agree with some of the things he says. Two issues been raised on the transmission of COVID. I think the WeWa has done WeWa Beach Club has done a great job, and I think that issue can be circled in compliance with the state rules. Any individual that's uncomfortable with that, unfortunately, should just not go to enjoy the beach club, in my view. The bigger issue that I'm having a serious concern about is the traffic issue. We spent a little bit of time before talking about road safety. So even though on average there's 10 cars, averages are very interesting because they smooth out any spikes, right? So as Alan McHugh said, maybe the data pool, first of all, is not as robust as previous years because of certain things that have happened. But the spikes are what I'm worried about, even in a low year. And this can, from the interest and participation in this group, it seems to me that it will be well used this year. So I think that the average will go up in addition to the spikes. So my view is, as a trustee with respect to Tuxedo Park, is that there are so many more people on the roads, so many more pedestrians on the roads. There's animals, people walking their dogs, their kids, bicycles on the roads, than I've ever experienced in my 20-something years here. That we're in a situation that we can't tolerate without additional risk, more vehicles on the road. So I am very supportive of opening up the Weewa Beach Club. I really want to find a way, but I think that we have to find a way. The way that we would find a way that would satisfy me is to mitigate the traffic. And instead of saying, why can't we use the north entrance, I'd like to explore how we can use it. So in other words, give me solutions about how that we can use that or some other ways. I'm not smart enough to figure out the ways to mitigate the traffic, but I'm sure there's somebody on the call that can. If we can mitigate the traffic, I'd be all in favor of that. But right now, with the level of pedestrians again and the traffic, even on average 10 cars, which I know it'll be a lot higher than that in the spikes, I think a disaster is going to happen, and I don't think we can tolerate that.
Thank you, Trustee Cohen. Trustee Gluck.
Sure, thank you. And thank everybody for all your comments, written and spoken. They all are very helpful. I guess my perspective is that if we can find a way to provide the residents of this village a swimming area this summer, it's something that we should strive for if we can do it safely. And I think, as others have pointed out, the safety issues are, one, COVID-19, and two, pedestrian safety. I think the New York State and the club have done an excellent job at putting in place a set of protocols that have all the possible I's dotted and T's crossed. The effort that has to be gone through in order to have this operate safely is laid out there with a great deal of precision, and the club, I think, is committed to operating within those guidelines safely. So I agree with Maureen there. The traffic issue, just as a data point, the 10 or so average per day, I think, was not a time period when the club was shut down. It's last year's time period when it was operating as a swim club at the same level that the club would be operating this year initially if it were to open. So if I'm incorrect in that, please somebody from the club speak up and let us know. So I think there are traffic issues here. There are certainly perceived traffic issues here. There's more people on the roads. There's certainly, with more people on the roads, it seems like there's more cars on the roads, but I don't think that the actual number of additional cars being contributed either on a weekend or a weekday is significant in the total context of cars coming through. And it seems like a minor additional burden to bear if we can provide the benefit that this would provide to our residents. So that's my perspective.
Thank you very much, Trustee Gluck. Trustee Barnett.
I echo Trustee Gluck. I think that, first of all, that I think the New York State guidelines are quite specific. And I think the plan that the Weewa Beach Club developed really goes beyond those. And I reviewed them and discussed them with Trustee Gluck, and I commend the Beach Club for doing a really excellent job. On traffic, I don't think it's fair to blame or to withhold this blaming the Beach Club for the traffic. It's the traffic is there for any number of reasons. A lot of people going here, being here. Maybe it's activities picking up with the Tuxedo Club. Are we gonna put the same burden on the club as we're putting on the Weewa Beach Club? I think that again, I think we need to enforce it. I think my experience, the reason I knew that the car ahead of me was going more than 35 miles an hour is I went up to 35 and he was pulling away. So
you were running 35 miles an hour, you said?
Indeed, I was.
Congratulations.
I went up from 30 to 35 and the car ahead of me was pulling away. Therefore,
I see what you. I see.
Therefore, I deduced the car was going more than 30 miles an hour. So therefore, I really wholeheartedly recommend the adoption of granting a license to the Beach Club for this year.
Thank you, Trustee Barnett. I'll speak a bit. There are three major concerns I have, which I've shared with the Beach Club and Paul Gluck in a meeting recently, in a negotiation with the Beach Club last Friday. They are traffic, transfer, and tracing. If they can't be mitigated to my satisfaction, I'm leaning away from approving. Hopefully they can be mitigated. Realizing that if any resident is concerned about getting COVID, as one of the trustees said, joining the club is optional. Many of the residents of Tuxedo Park go to the club and enjoy it very much. And whoever's congregating there, there's the same risk for all parties. As I said earlier, we all shop at the same grocery stores and we all hire workers from outside the park. And as we open up the third and fourth phase of the economic reopening, people are going to be traveling to different areas much more frequently. And that could potentially reduce the number of pedestrians, but it also increases risk for spreading the virus. So in detail, transferring of the virus. In speaking with the Beach Club, we discussed taking temperatures of members entering the Beach Club at the discretion of their COVID enforcement officer. And look, no one wants to have a COVID-19 explosion here. And as mayor, my major priority is safety. I think that, for example, I've mentioned before, I went to the dentist the other day and they wouldn't let me in the waiting room until they zapped my forehead. This is common at airports and everywhere else. And the bottom line is, if you have a fever, and I believe the threshold's 101, you are not allowed in. You're considered to be a COVID risk. So that is a very satisfactory solution to me. And the tracing matter is defined as immediately knowing if someone is sick, reaching out to the contact tracer in the area and asking that individual who they were in contact with and when. And I know that the Beach Club has a very, very accurate list of who's been there, what time, and so forth, which would make it very easy for the contact tracer. And those people that were in touch with this infected individual would be forced to stand down for 14 days, I believe the current rule is. And I also suggested that they hire their own contact tracer. It's a brief training, it's free, but there are some responsibilities. So we haven't decided on what route to go. And then the traffic safety is also extremely important. That's both for cars and pedestrians. For example, I was in the sort of left lane, slowly going to pass some people, and a car came around the curve and we almost had a head on. So it's not just pedestrians, but the pedestrians are vulnerable They haven't learned yet to walk against the traffic. They haven't been very good at walking single file when they hear cars. Today I passed a jogger who had his headphones on and was checking the cell phone. So people need to be educated on all fronts. Someone had mentioned the North Gate, and it may or may not be feasible, and would like to have some more information. So the North Gate is something that I brought up with the Beach Club, and they were willing to participate in that in some manner, shape, or form as we got things further along. So in my emergency Orange and Rockland meeting, we spent some time discussing the feasibility of using the North Gate, and that was the chief, Jeff Voss, supervisor, and John Ledwith. And there are things that we need to be concerned about in terms of signage and cutting back brush and making it a feasible place to go through. That can be accomplished. We have had DPW people, and we currently have O&R vehicles and others that have been, and contractors that are working on things, coming through there for years. I've been there, and it's worth taking a look. It's not like you're going to drive into a sewer. That's just not the way it's set up. And also, we briefly discussed the DEC and how they would view it. And we felt like, anecdotally, they would not resist. And we think that we should bring them in for an actual observation. And if they say it's safe, the Department of Environmental Conservation, I think that it would pass muster. One of the things I was thinking about was how we would use the North Gate and for what days. And I was thinking that for weekdays, we would have the front gate for entrance and exit. And for weekend days, we would have a part-time officer there. And that would be someone that we would hire in addition to the team we have now. Because if we use the team we have now, we'll start facing more overtime. So this would be a short-term job of a month or two for a part-time officer. Let's just say, because, I'm speculating, but I think the season might be from, let's say it's July 6th, which coincides with the opening of phase 4, which is the last opening, through September 15th. And that equals a total of 19 Saturdays and Sundays. And if the hours are 10 a day on those 2 days, and the officer's pay is $32 an hour, that approaches $6,000. And I believe that that $6,000 should be paid for by the Beach Club. Currently, they're paying $1 to lease the property. I also know, however, that the Beach Club is short on funds, but I think it could be done. Years ago, when Bonnie said that she might have to expand the boundaries into the town from the East Village, I didn't have the money to, and needed money not to. I personally went around and raised money and donated it to the Beach Club so that they would not have to expand their boundary. And I think that is something that potentially the Beach Club could consider doing to pay for the security. As I mentioned earlier, the state has already given us regulations to open the parks and beaches. And if the healthcare department approves the plan, the COVID-19 mitigation plan from the Beach Club, it's harder and harder to say no. Because as I mentioned earlier, we're all, we're congregating, we're all going to the same stores. And, if there's an outbreak, it could be from either party to the other. And so I think that that's something we need to seriously consider. And I'm wondering if I should, after the meeting, send out the mitigation plans to everyone, because they're very thorough. And included would be our ability to shut the park down at will, which would be done if there were a breakout. And as I mentioned earlier, you would have to self sequester for 14 days if you came into contact. And I think these kind of things prevent a major breakout. So, you know, those are some of the things I've been thinking. And, you know, I'd like to see what the temperature of the trustees are now before I would propose a resolution. So without objection, I'd like to go around to the trustees again and see if they have enough information at this point to cast a vote in the sense of a straw poll. Why don't I start with Trustee McHugh?
I have enough information. I just want everybody to be cognizant that we continually are deficient with our sewer plant and the DEC in terms of effluent flows, in terms of licensing, and with regard to progress of our I&I project. So asking for favors from a group where you're already derelict in your duties seems not the greatest idea to me, but that's me.
Okay, fair enough. So you'd be willing to vote. Do you know which way you're leaning?
Yes.
Would you like to share that so I can get a sort of a pulse?
Sorry. I apologize. I thought you just wanted if I had enough information. I do have enough information, and I don't find it compelling enough, and I just see the risk reward not there to open it.
Thank you very much. Trustee Cohn?
Based on the information I have right now, right, I would be inclined not to open it. However, I'd be very interested in seeing the traffic mitigation.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Unless you have something more to say, I think you're done. Okay, Trustee Gluck, do you have a way you're leaning?
Well, I was leaning in favor before the additional layer of mitigations, if you will. I would probably like to hear from the club on some of those. I think I am not a big fan, security-wise, of utilizing the North Gate. If utilizing an officer along the lines you suggested, I think would add $350, $400 per family on average in terms of membership cost. If you covered that, $6,000 across the 160 families, I think, that are currently members. So I think that's a big hurdle, to get over. I recall the club being very receptive to using temperature readings and being very receptive to establishing a relationship with a contact tracer. So again, it's really up to the club, but I don't see those as real big issues. The concern I do have, though, is when we start to chase some of these goals down the road. Here we are on June 17th. They take time to do, and we try and stay away from having too many meetings. And I could see ourselves approaching, as I said in a prior meeting, approaching an opening date around Labor Day. But so that's something we should, I think, try and avoid going down that road.
Thank you, Trustee Gluck. Trustee Barnett, do you have a sense of where you might be leaning?
Yeah, if the vote were right now, I'd vote yes. I think that I share Paul's comment about the North Gate. I don't think that's necessary, and I think it's an unfair additional cost. But I vote yes.
Okay. In that case, I think we should seek further mitigation from the beach club, and we should wait potentially till we see the reaction from the health department. And I know, for example, that's a catch-22. And I think that we should continue negotiating and gathering information for Alan and Maureen to see if that affects their position. So that said, why don't we call a special meeting next week in the name of expediency, excuse me, and work hard between now and then to take this to the next level without objection from the trustees.
Mac,
Who's speaking?
it's Jen Darling. I'd like to.
Hi, Jen. Yes, please.
So I appreciate everyone's thoughts. And again, I want to reiterate as a resident, I understand your concerns about traffic, and I would very much support lowering the speed limit to 25, by the way. So I've said my 2 cents there, whether I should or not. I wanted to address some of the concerns about the overall traffic at the WeWa total, and not just about the non-resident cars. So we did a little more work today. I pulled up, I'm looking at a spreadsheet one of our board members did on daily averages and daily medians over the weekends. Okay, so from 6/22 to Labor Day weekend, well, it's 6/22 to 8/25 is the data I have. Okay, so which is where Trustee Cohen, I think the spikes would occur. And total, this is village residents plus non-village residents. The daily average of attendee members at the park was 39.9. And we averaged 17.4 guests. The median for that same time period was 37.5 and 9. So just to give you an idea of where we are. We do want to point out as the beach club that we are eliminating non-family guests for the summer. So we're immediately going to have a direct impact and lower traffic all the way around, because we don't feel that in the spirit of quarantine that bringing your long lost friends or school friends to a beach club, to a community where we're all very focused on staying safe, and we're going to be implementing strict social distancing measures, is the right thing to do, right? So the only question for us was family passes, and what do those look like? So we have already eliminated guest passes, which means less traffic, less attendees. And finally, I do want to say that, again, by not opening the club, what we're really doing is disenfranchising a lot of our village residents. I think we're probably capped out at the number of Hamlet residents that we're going to have, and I'm even going to venture a guess and say that many of our older Hamlet residents are going to self-select not to come to the beach because they need to be more careful, or they feel they need to be more careful until maybe there's an antidote. So I think we're going to have less people generally that want to attend, but more people in the village, right? Because we are at capacity here, and many of our neighbors are not necessarily Tuxedo Club members, right? So I just wanted to reiterate those averages to give you a little more data on what a WeWa spike looks like for us. It's 40 people. If I translate that into 3 or 4 people per car, and you're aware that that's village versus non-village, it isn't significant, although I understand that every car is significant to you right now. So, but I thought I'd give you some additional data before you voted.
Thank you, Jen. So I think that after we move forward with some additional negotiations, with your permission, I think it would be very helpful to distribute your COVID-19 mitigation plans to the public, and that could be done through the village website. And so please consider that over the next few days when we continue our negotiations. All right, so with that objection, I'm going to move on to the resolution for booth vendor agreements. Is that okay with everyone?
Well, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Scheduling a meeting for next week, should we?
I think we should, yeah. And I think that you and I should reach out and make sure that we pick a date that has enough notice to the public. but in terms of setting it now, I don't know if that's possible.
Could we just circle it possible to a time? Just to-
Sure, yeah, we could do a tentative appointment. What were you thinking, Maureen?
Tuesday, I mean, I want to do it as quickly as possible because the season is getting underway. So I definitely want to, give the beach club as much time in the season as they can have. So Tuesday maybe at 9 or evening. I don't know if people want to do it.
If Jen and Bonnie are willing to work during the weekend, that would work for me. I think I'm guesstimating, but. And how about you, Alan Barnett, and Trustee Barnett and Trustee McHugh?
This weekend is Father's Day weekend, so I think it's.
Oh, yeah, that's bad. I say tentative on Tuesday morning at 9, but there's a heavy chance of rain and bad weather, which may force us to move it to Wednesday.
Why?
Why? Who said why?
Yeah, I did. Why?
I'm sorry, who?
Me. Why? Why?
I'm sorry. Why do we want to move it?
Yeah, if it's raining.
Or why do we, I was kidding about that. You mean, Tuesday at 9 works for me. But I think, as Paul said, we're penciling this in. I think I have to go offline with Paul and Jen and Bonnie and address the scope of what we have in mind before we can make the decision as to how long it would take to negotiate.
Make it easy. Any time next week in the morning, fine.
So should we shoot for Tuesday?
Fine.
Okay. Tuesday at 9 in the morning. Thank you. All right. So let's move on to the resolution to approve the last two vendors. And this, if approved, would be the final approval of the booth. So I'm wondering if the board members have any comments. How about Trustee McHugh?
A couple things is John Koslar referenced a document, Exhibit A, which is architect's drawings. They are dated August 7th, 2019. The architect met in front of the BAR, agreed to make some modifications. That's not reflected in the document, so I find that a little bit problematic. I also noticed that HVAC was not included, nor the foundation plans or everything, so I was a little bit perplexed how people were able to bid on that. I understand the Jody Zero because that element was fine. The S&B Total Home Care, I'm a little bit confused about that one and understand why there weren't three bidders as a result. And then my only other comment was I didn't know how or if there are any changes as a result of the May 8th part-time police officers' concerns with regard to the booth design, and what the response was. And I think we need it documented so everybody knows what's going. So if the concerns aren't mitigated, we all have a certain degree of comfort with regard to that.
Thank you. Trustee Cohen.
I have nothing to add other than I believe some of the comments that Paul had raised, but I'll go into it. We're not included.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Gluck.
Sure. So apologize for what might be the lateness of this, but as you recall, there was some confusion last week over exactly which agreements were being considered today, and I don't think that got resolved until yesterday at 6 p.m. So I thought the agreements as they were supposed to have been modified as under Brian Nugent's April 6th memo were fine. My only issues are that subsequent to that, on one agreement, it looks like the description of the work has been taken out of that agreement. I understand that it's felt that that simply by referring to the architect's plans, that's adequate. It's a little bit above my pay grade because I don't work with plans, but I just want to make sure that both council and you, Mayor, as sort of the project manager, are comfortable that it's clear from the plans which work is being done by, is required to be done by Jody Zero and which work is required to be done by S&B, because they both simply refer to the work in the plans. So if you're comfortable with that, both of you, that is helpful. If not, I would suggest that something be done to address that. On the JZ issue agreement, the agreement as provided, there's an error in the pricing. The total of payments totals $4,000 more than the total. So we just have to make sure that gets fixed. And the provisions that were in the April 6th memo that deal with a delivery date are no longer included. So without a delivering date, there's no way of knowing when there's performance or not performance. So my suggestion that goes back to the way it was on April 6th, or some other mechanism, be provided in there.
Thank you. Trustee Barnett.
I can't add anything to what Paul said. I agree.
Okay, so I'll just I made some notes. The HVAC, one of the trustees mentioned how that was bid. The HVAC, I believe we had 3 vendors and chose the cheapest. With the part-time officers complaining that they may or may not want to work in the booth, I believe that was strongly addressed by the chief in 2 letters that you requested, where he said some may not want to, but they will if they're asked to. And in terms of his recent hiring, just hired another officer, he's hiring people that are behind the booth. So, I mean, I think that's really up to the chief, and he feels comfortable with managing the department with the booth in place, and he's made that very clear. In terms of the Jody Zero and S&B contracts, Jody Zero is responsible for the steel frame, and S&B is responsible for the steel frame fit out. And they both decided to remove the cost to ship the unit from Jody Zero's warehouse to S&B's warehouse, and S&B shipping to the site in the village. And the reason they did that, and that they requested this, because this was based on conversations with them. They're the guys where the rubber meets the road. The reason was because they don't know the weight of it. They don't know exactly how they are going to move it. And so they've agreed to move it, but they wanted to wait till a certain point during construction to price it. Now, I have been given an estimate of $3,000 to $4,000, which makes sense. So I'm perfectly satisfied that that's appropriate. In terms of removing a description of materials, it's a very good question. The description of materials is found on the architectural plans, the structural plans, and the technical specifications. They are not commonly put into an agreement because, for example, if there's an opportunity to change a material, something that's cheaper, something that's better, something that's out of supply, you wouldn't want to go back to the contract each time and have to, revisit it and initial it and make changes there. In fact, what's typically done is what's called a change order. And those changes are written onto the drawing because the drawing continues to be a legal document. So that's why those were taken out from the contract. But still, the architectural plans and technical specs must be followed. You mentioned something about that affecting the time frame. And I believe we have an end date in place that the whole project has to be completed by. So if they have a few gyrations in the middle, get a little behind on one thing and make it up on another, that's just typical construction matters. The approval, excuse me, the documents, and I'm not going to address the dates and all that. I'll let, and the price differential, because those could be easily corrected. I'm going to have John address those, John Kay from Nugent. But I think that I sort of lost my train of thought. I think that the changes that have been made are so insignificant to the success of the project that we should be gung-ho today to move on. So that's where I stand. I'm sure I'm missing a few things, but I'll hand it off to John. And John, if you don't mind addressing the confusion we've had between each version and the Jody Zero price, which seems to be off.
Yeah, no problem. So as to the first matter with the confusion of the agreements, all of the changes that were included and reviewed by Brian are in the agreements that were sent yesterday to the board. None of those had been changed in this agreement. There was some other things changed, but this is the most updated version that is in front of the board to date. Brian has looked at them and I've also looked at them. As to the price, if it's going to be the total cost 16,000 and there's a schedule of payments to be made, we can easily correct that. I just need to know what that schedule is. That can be a simple fix. So that said, we've reviewed them and we don't really see any legal impediments right now, subject to those that one adjustment. And then as to the proposal for the delivery and things to be done, as long as the delivery and the purchase, the total contract price, whether SMB delivers it or Jody Zero delivers it, as long as that number is under 20,000, then it should be able to.
So respectfully,
yep.
I don't think that's at all, from either response, really responsive to the 3 points that I had just raised. One of which was that in the, one of which was a question really, is that you guys are comfortable that because both agreements say we agree to do the work that's specified in the architectural drawings. They both say the same thing, that you're comfortable that there's a mechanism for knowing that Jody Zero isn't going to say S&B is responsible for that, or S&B isn't going to say Jody Z is responsible for that. So I don't know how that gets done or how that gets allocated. I'm just sort of looking at the agreement. By reason of the fact that the description of the work is no longer in there, there's nothing on the face of the document that says what work. Maybe you need to say the work relating to the steel frame that's specified in the agreement, something like that. So I leave that to you guys because you know the work being done better than me, but I'm just raising that as a suggestion. The other point was the agreements that were distributed on April 6th, which I think was the last time we saw this. Which one was it? It's the JZ agreement had a specification of a delivery date, and there was some, well, let's not go there. The agreement that's before us now doesn't have a delivery date specified because the entire Article 5 was taken out. I don't see how that works, but you know, I'm happy to listen to an explanation of why we don't need a delivery date in that contract.
Well, one of the issues is that you're asking a contractor to have a delivery date, but as everyone here knows, there are always issues that come up. And as long as the contractor informs us, hey guys, it's going to take me another 2 days, the steel didn't come in on time, or hey guys, I finished early. Those are just par for the course of a construction project. So I'm not concerned about that. And I'm not concerned at all about the division of duties. It's very clear. When we have our kickoff meeting, it'll be even more clear. You know, there's certain things now that are not going to be necessarily in the agreement that satisfies every lawyer. But in terms of standard operating procedure, project management, and construction, it's tight. And I do know, as John mentioned, that both John and Brian Nugent, our village attorney, said they have no issues with these legally. I think the only issue is correcting the Jody zero price and payment plan.
Yeah, we've taken a look at them. I've spoken to the mayor. As to the specific work to be done by each vendor, what was removed from SMB was a very specific schedule, and the mayor has explained that based on his experience in the project management, and he is overseeing it along with Judge John Ledwith, the progress of the construction of this and purchase of the steel frame and the build out.
Yeah, the village engineer is being going to be a part of the steel construction oversight.
And there are certain protections in there, including the village has the right to inspect progress. It has final approval. SMB, for example, cannot begin their build out until they receive authorization from the village that the steel frame was done correctly by Jody Zero. And so there's almost progress monitoring along the way.
On delivery, we're not talking about SMB, we're talking about JZ.
Right, I was going to get there.
There's no date by which they have to start. There's no time period by which they have to finish, and there's no end date by which they have to end. So in the absence of any of those, how would you ever know when something is not performed, and what good is a letter of credit?
Well, Trustee Gluck, how do we know when this project's going to start?
But you could say once it starts, you have
we adjust it.
6 months to do it, and that way, if it's not delivered in 6 months, then you have a letter of credit to go against. But without some combination of a start date, a time period, or an end date, you don't need all of those, but you need 2 out of those 3 somehow.
I believe after the construction meeting, the kickoff meeting, my intention is to require all 3. And I'm not going to set a contract to a specific date that is unknown. But as soon as we start, those protections will go into the agreement. And again, that's just part of managing a typical construction project.
No, it's not. Okay. I support what Paul's saying. And John, there's no way that a contract would not have those fundamental things. In fact, it may make the contract totally unenforceable with some fundamental points in it. So these are very easy fixes. They should be addressed and it's signed and we'd be done. This is like so fundamental. It is annoying at this point that we're at this stage. So a date, what you do for a date is, as Paul suggested, 6 months after executing the contract, as may be adjusted by mutual agreements, things like that. This is ridiculous. We should get this done because I want this project to be done as much as you do, Mac. So let's get these fundamental terms in the contracts and get it signed next week. We have a meeting on Tuesday. Let's get it done.
Okay, so I met with the vendors and they signed the agreements after we discussed these things. They're comfortable with them. I'm comfortable with them, and the attorney's comfortable with them. And, look, I mean, you made a statement. I mean, I'm architecturally trained and I've done hundreds of projects. I don't think you've done any.
I have drafted contracts for construction.
Well, you might have done lawyer stuff with contracts, but every contract's different. And I'm not going to get into it, but you just don't have the experience to make those kind of statements.
As a matter of enforceability, there are certain fundamental contract terms that need to be there. So, and this is easy to solve. This should not be a problem. So can we just get it done and get it done by Tuesday?
I can't guarantee that because I don't know if the contractors will agree. I'm telling you now that they're satisfactory. You want to add back new things or add old things back, that just gums up the whole works.
Okay, so Paul made some really good comments on the documents, and it appears some of them that are fundamental contract principal terms have not been included. This is
And
a
I
ridiculous
completely
argument.
disagree with those they are not principal concerns.
Okay, you have no right to enforce the contract. You can't ask somebody to amend a contract.
All right, look, obviously, you're a no, Alan's a no, Paul's a no, so that means it's a no. So we will obviously table the discussion until a future point in time. All right, thank you.
No, sorry.
So let's move on.
No, let's
have,
let's get this done. No, Mac, let's get this done. John, can we get those
Yes.
fundamental points in the contract by Tuesday? You
Of
can try-
course, of course. I
Okay.
can do it tomorrow and send it to you right away. I can do it tonight, whatever.
Perfect. Can we send them to Jody Zero and S&B?
They're already signed.
It does not matter. We're not.
It doesn't matter to you. All right, let's move on, please. We're wasting everyone's time. We're wasting people's time. We can have a meeting. John just said he could get you the documents. Let's move on.
No, I want to get this signed. You're missing my point.
did.
I want this
He
done
said-
Tuesday. No, it goes to Jody Zero.
I'm glad you want it done Tuesday. It may not be able to be done Tuesday. That's just, that's life, okay? Let's be flexible.
I'm hoping that.
Are you
Jody-
leaving town or something?
No, I want to.
All right, look, let's not loggerhead here. It's not fair to the people that are watching the meeting. Obviously, you have some very strong feelings. I'm sure we can deal with it offline as soon as possible, including tomorrow morning. So my recommendation, without exception, is to move on. And I'd like to move on to the next item, which is a discussion about Overton subdivision. And I thought, Trustee Gluck, you're the most familiar. Would you like to tee this up?
Actually, no, because I thought where this was that we were waiting for input from Brian's firm on the pros and cons of what Overton's counsel had suggested that we do.
Okay, so
It's a background on that, but I don't have any.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's been on the agenda for 3 or 4 days,
Right.
and we certainly could have taken it off. All right, let's move on. Updating the job search for replacing Debbie. Trustee Barnett, would you like to say a few brief words?
Yes. First of all, we have posted on the village website a description of the job that David and I developed. It has now been posted in the Times Record. It was posted today, and it's been posted on a number of websites as well. So they just got posted to the public, and we're expecting replies of interest in the very near future.
Absolutely, Trustee Barnett. So I'll just add a little color. Trustee Barnett did a really good job of organizing the job description. He combined the civil job description, information from the NICOM organization book, and information he garnered from other ads for village, senior village clerks and treasurers. So I think it's very good. We had some modifications. I know that Brian looked at it. And so what we're doing, practically speaking, is we've posted the job order on the village website under a tab that I believe says jobs. At the bottom of that page, it gives you information to contact us, where to send your resume and credentials. And then when we went to the papers, we took a brief summary of it, because it's a large job description, as all of them are. So when we went to the advertisement, we cut it down to, 250 words, and put the email down to send your resume and references. And we also put a link to refer them to the full job description. So in addition, we made up an alias email that I believe it says clerk position at tuxedopark-ny.com. And the alias is over to Trustee Barnett and myself. so that we don't have to worry about resumes getting lost in the shuffle. They're going to come directly to us. And then the next update, Trustee Barnett, if you agree, is that we'll be hopefully presenting resumes and discussing and potentially even doing some phone interviews. But that's a far away. We just put the ad in today, and we're looking forward to see what happens. Is that a reasonable, Trustee Barnett, does that sound reasonable?
Absolutely.
Any questions? Okay, let's move on to new business. A resolution related to leak detection in the East Village. Trustee McHugh, would you like to tee this up?
No, John Ledwith.
All right. John, would you like to tee this up?
Yes, we would like to employ a leak detection company to check some of the more difficult areas that our water lines cross under. I mentioned earlier the New York State Thruway, the Ramapo River, the railroad tracks, and these are areas that would be very difficult to get to that you wouldn't ordinarily just excavate to test them. There's two companies that we've gotten information on that would do some acoustic sounding. They would do that sounding during the daytime, and if they felt there was either too much vibration or too much noise in the background because of traffic, trains and or vehicles, they may also wish to come back at a time when traffic is not as prevalent. The lowest price I received is $1,500 a day for an 8-hour day. These companies were both recommended to us by New York Rural Water. New York Rural Water is a state agency that the Village Water Department is part of. They provide background advice and guidance for water departments throughout New York State. We've had very good luck with them on a number of smaller other issues, and I'm confident in their recommendations. For the record, one company, it's NYLD, and the second company is Prowler Water Conservation Systems. Prowler Water Conservation Systems is $1,500 a day, and NYLD is $1,650 per day. I see no reason to go with the higher bid at this point. It's only $100. So I recommend Prowler at $1,500 a day. Any questions that I could help you with?
John, just a quick question. What was it? Did you get a timeline on when they could come in and do this?
Yes, I did speak to one of the companies, and I believe the other company did not have, I'm just reading here his memo. You know, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think there was much of a time delay. I was under the impression that within a week, either company would be involved with us on the ground. I can check, tomorrow morning, but I don't think either of them were that busy.
All right, so Trustee McHugh, do you have any suggestions to move forward?
I'm just wondering if we, given there's only a $100 delta, whether it makes sense to see which vendor could come sooner, and that might sway our decision, and we just rectify or make a decision on this next Tuesday along with the Weewa Beach Club.
Is that fine with everybody? Okay, let's move on. Thank you. All right. Did someone say anything? Okay. Resolution water plant generator. Trustee McHugh, I believe you want to tee this up.
Yes. So the issue we've had, and it's been going on for the last 3 months, is the generator, the water plant has died. Jeff and John got costs to repair the units, and they range from $22,500 up to $34,000. The unit itself is 18 years old. Basis the cost of repairing the thing, we went out and priced new units, and The pricing I'd laid out in the email are slightly problematic because you have a non-installed price being the lowest price of $42,790 and the highest price being $61,990, which was an installed price. Jeff and John had looked into installation prices and removals of the unit. What we'd like to recommend is that the board approve the purchase of a high-power generator model number HGW 205T6U at a price of $51,590 from Gen Tech Limited. This is an installed price on the unit, and also includes the disposal of the old unit. The line items in the water budget this would be coming from is 834020F, which is transportation and distribution equipment, and the funding from it will be coming from line item 199040F, which is our contingency. So that's the funding. This comes out as being one of the highest recommended generators out there in the market. The two additional appeals we have to this is, one is as the shortest timeline with regard to delivery of the unit, which is 8 weeks. The other ones were in excess of 20 weeks, which was a little bit unnerving given this is what moves our pump or potentially keeps our water plant operating. And the other thing is they're willing to provide on-site generator if we do have a power loss, and they will put that in place until the power comes back in the park. So it's giving us a backup, which obviously is compelling too. So does anybody have any questions with regard to this?
All right, so I reviewed your material. I had a little extra time to do that, and I'm very comfortable with the recommendation. That's my view. It looks like you should call a resolution.
Do I need to re-articulate or can I ask for a second?
Just say what you just said starts with "be it resolved."
Be it resolved that the board approve the purchase of a high-power generator model HJW 205T6U at a price of $51,590 from Genentech Limited. Do I have the line items in the budget, water budget from this purchase are coming from 834020F, transportation and distribution, with the funding coming from line item 199040F, which is contingency. Do I have a second?
Second, and I'll call the roll. Trustee Gluck.
Aye.
Trustee Barnett.
Aye.
Trustee Cohn.
Aye.
Trustee McHugh.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to a resolution to accept the part-time police officer reimbursement agreement. And Chief, do you want to tee this up?
Sure. So I worked with Brian Nugent on this. There was a one-year agreement in place previously for reimbursement for an officer who attended, who we sponsored to phase 2 of the police academy. And then if they left within a year, they had to pay back costs. I guess with the last person who left about a year ago, there were some issues with recouping those monies. So Brian Nugent came up with a prorated 3-year agreement, and it has an exact dollar amount of uniform reimbursement and as well as training, so that the new hire would know exactly what he would be expected to pay back if he were to leave.
Thank you, Chief. And this is to replace an existing agreement, correct?
Correct.
In other words, you're beefing it up. All right, I'll go around the horn.
Yeah.
Paul, have you any comments? Trustee Gluck, excuse me.
No.
Trustee Barnett.
Sorry, I just had one comment to the chief is, do you have greater comfort that our protections for the village with regard to getting remediation, do they satisfy you? Because we had, the original agreement was written by the same person. So I just want to make sure you're comfortable, because I know it's making sure the new officer, and it's the new officers we're sponsoring for phase 2 of their training, that we get reimbursed, correct?
Well, I don't believe that the first agreement was written by Mr. Nugent. He claimed that he did not write that agreement. He doesn't know where it came from. I am comfortable with the agreement that he did make, and I think the village is much more protected now than before.
Okay, I mean, I'm supportive of this because you know my frustrations with collecting receivables.
All right, so do we have a resolution prepared? Had Debbie given us a resolution?
I haven't seen one, unfortunately.
Okay, I'll go.
That one?
Yeah, well, no, but I'll just say, be it resolved that this board approves the replacement part-time police officer reimbursement agreement. May I have a second? Second. Trustee Gluck.
Aye.
Trustee Barnett.
Aye.
Trustee Cohn.
Aye.
Trustee McHugh.
Aye.
The ayes have it. All right. So let me see it. On the next, we've got the club fireworks. Paul, would you like to tee this up, or Maureen, since you're?
I think Maureen.
Yeah, Maureen, would you like to tee it up?
Yes, the general manager probably should be on this Zoom, and he was not aware that it was on the agenda this evening. So I suggest that we move this to our special meeting in light of the fact that probably some questions that I know that I've spoken to some of the trustees and they have questions about the application. So if everyone does not mind, we'll move it to Tuesday.
Done. Okay, so resolution McFadden well application. I subsequently found out just prior to the meeting that the plumber had not submitted a drawing he had promised Monday. So I'd like to table this discussion until the next meeting. So that said, let's move on to the next resolution. Grant Police Chief access to Tuxedo Lake via Shastaloo Lane. The chief has asked if he could enter Tuxedo Lake to carry out his official duties and for enforcement and recreational fishing. I think it's a fair exchange for the amount he has saved the taxpayers in overtime since he started, and a nice way of saying thank you. I'll go around the horn. I'll start with Trustee McHugh.
I echo your comments with regard to the chief and thinking he's done a phenomenal job on getting organizationally and getting things moving in the right direction. I guess my concern is I think we need to kind of look at it on a broader thing with regard to other employees and making sure it's compliant with, you know, whatever codes that we currently have and what other employees may or may not be entitled to. So, you know, fundamentally, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a great idea with regard to enforcement, because that's one issue we've been deficient in for many years, and we obviously have a huge issue with a lot of boats not being registered but being out on the lake. So I see a lot of merit to it. I just want to make sure we have a policy that we can all live with and future boards can live with.
Thank you, Trustee McHugh. Trustee Gluck.
Sure. I think this is something I'd like to get to yes on. A similar question came up in the context of a former police chief. And as I mentioned earlier today, I think we were advised by Brian's firm that our code a code which limits the the type of people who can place boats on Tuxedo Lake with specification. In other words, there's a code provision 65.2G that says only the following persons are permitted to place boats on Tuxedo Lake: owners of record of property, Tuxedo Club and the Village Boat Club, and officers, employees, and duly designated agents of the village, but only for the purpose of carrying out their official duties as such officers, employees, or agents. So I think the prior advice we got was that in order to do this, we would have to amend our code. And we am certainly amenable to exploring doing that, but I don't think the chief law enforcement officer of the village would want to embark on a road where he's inconsistent with that code provision.
Thank you, Trustee Gluck. I'll just jump in. I sent your passage from the code and the one I referred to, which said that the trustees have the right to occasionally allow someone to access Tuxedo Lake. And his comment was that there were no issues, that we could do it. John, do you want to address that? Or I don't know if you were prepared.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, so Trustee Gluck, the code section you referred to definitely says what it says, that the chief can use it for official duties, and it's to place a boat. And then the other section that, Mayor, you've referenced has to deal with designating certain locations for access. But code section 65.6B permits the village, notwithstanding access in all those other sections, to permit invitees and guests of property owners adjoining the shoreline from the property owner's property access to the lake. So nothing necessarily prohibits the arrangement, nor does it specifically authorize it. Ultimately, it would be more of like a policy, and that's all presuming the village is a property owner adjoining the lake. If it is, it can say invite or.
Thank you. Yeah, in fact, the end of the Shasta Lane is village-owned property with the water processing plant and a home which the DPW supervisor lives in. I talked to the DPW supervisor and he was, hey, bring it on. If the village agrees, he can put his boat right here. And so that would be what I've learned from that regard. The other issue I think Trustee McHugh brought up was that, who do we give it to? Who do we don't? Look, we're the Board of Trustees. And if we want to give somebody permission, that does not mean we have to give everybody permission. I'm sorry. And it does not mean that we've set a precedent that the next chief gets that permission. The fact is, this is a reward, in my view, for the great work he's done. And the benefit of that is that he will be able to perform enforcement duties. So I'm ready to vote. Is anyone else ready to vote?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready to vote. I just want to say that I think the chief's doing a great job. I think that there's two things that I'd like to say. One, Chief, when you're out on the lake, if we approve this, fishing, I personally don't expect you to be doing enforcement duties. I expect you to be recreating. But I think it's great having a chief that sees all aspects of the village. And I think there's a huge benefit to the village in doing this. So if you're out there fishing, enjoy yourself, relax, and obviously observe what's going on. I personally, the way I would approach this is that I heard what John said. I think that means he has to get permission every single time to come as a guest, and he has to be invited as a guest every single time. I'd like to allow him, the chief, to do this under that argument. However, I think it's best if we actually change the law to either allow the trustees to allow certain village employees to do it, or change it so that we allow the chief of police to do it.
Thank you, Trustee. Thank you, Trustee Cohen. It's actually a resolution. We wouldn't need to change the law. And
That's what I'm saying, that we should resolve it tonight However, in addition, as belt and suspenders, because there's some vagueness in that description that John just said, which is that he's a guest of the village. So that presumes you give permission every time a guest comes in, as opposed to.
He's actually an employee of the village, and I don't believe that it would be required to give him permission each time. John, you want to comment on that?
Again, the code doesn't necessarily specify whether or not it's, every single use, or it could be an invitation for, say, the summer or something like that. It doesn't go into those kind of specifics. Again, it would be a policy decision for the board.
Meaning it could be accomplished in a resolution.
Yes. Or you can amend the local code by local law to allow certain other people to access it.
My view about that is that if changing a local law means public hearings, and it also ties the hands of the next administration, a resolution by the next administration could be easily turned around if they don't like it. So to me, that's the easiest way to go. Yes, Trustee Cohn.
No, I agree with you. It's definitely the easiest way. I'm just, John, your interpretation, I understand. You're reading how it is read, but the intent when you have a guest is not that you give them a year or multiple year guest pass to your property. That is not what typically happens. So that's what I'm saying. I want to get it done. I want to pass a resolution, but I also think belts and suspenders, we should change the law. So in other words, do both.
Okay, so do we have 3 votes to approve this now by resolution? I would approve.
And mine.
Alan Barnett would approve.
I would approve as well.
Right now?
Yes, and I'm going to
Terrific.
that we do the law as well. Next one.
Okay, well done. Be it resolved by this board that the village chief of police, Chief Dave Conklin, may store and launch his boat onto Tuxedo Lake from the village property at the bottom of Shasta Lou Lane, and while on the lake must comply with all code regulations regarding Tuxedo Lake, and must perform enforcement duties as well. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Discussion, please.
Discussion, yeah.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I thought we had burnt out with discussion. Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm looking at this section, and it would have been very helpful if we had seen a reference to that section in the context before the meeting, so we wouldn't have to do this.
I did send it to you.
Right, and
I also have the.
I responded, and I did not get a response back, but I'm looking at the reference section 65.6, and the question I have here, is this a sentence we're relying on? Notwithstanding the foregoing, the owners and lessees of property adjoining the shoreline of such lakes and their guests, members, and invitees shall have access to any of said lakes from such property for purposes permitted in this chapter? Is that the provision that we're relying on?
I'm not sure, but.
Yes, correct.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm just highlighting here that sentence ends with for purposes permitted in this chapter. And I don't think there's a purpose permitted in the chapter for this activity, which is why I suggested in our email exchange.
With all due respect, that final phrase would permit any activity in the entire chapter. So anything that anybody else is allowed to do, you would be allowed to do as an invitee or guest.
All right, roll call. Trustee McHugh.
No, wait. I have one more discussion point.
Sure.
The last part you said could you read that again? I'm sorry, I'm searching for the resolution. The last part said for enforcement activities, is that what it says?
No, it says for purposes permitted in this chapter.
No, that's the law, but no, I'm looking at the resolution.
Yes. Do you want me to read it again?
Only the last phrase, frankly.
Okay. While on the lake, the chief must comply with all code regulations regarding Tuxedo Lake. That can be struck or not, and must perform his enforcement duties.
I have a problem with that, which is what I said earlier. If he's on the lake, the benefit, he's not working. It's recreational. Chief, I want you to enjoy the lake and also observe, but you're not going to be on duty.
What if he sees something going on the lake, like a boat that's illegal?
He will likely call somebody up. but it's not in he's not on the lake for enforcement purposes.
I don't know if I agree. I'll ask the chief.
It is no problem to enforce while I'm out there. You know, if I see a boat that's not registered or not in compliance with the code, I would definitely call the on-duty officer. I would instruct the owner or the person operating that boat to go to the shoreline, and then the on-duty officer will take action. So I'm technically not enforcing, but I would be
observing.
Thank you. Trustee Cohen, would you prefer that Trustee Cohen, would you like me to take that line out?
I would.
Okay. Does anyone else object to taking that line out? Okay, I'll reread it. Be it resolved by this board that the village chief of police, Chief Dave Conklin, may store and launch his boat onto Tuxedo Lake from the village-owned property at the bottom of Shastaloo Lane, and while on the lake, must comply with all code regulations regarding Tuxedo Lake. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call. Trustee Gluck.
Abstain.
Abstain. Trustee Barnett.
I approve.
Trustee Cohn.
Approve.
Trustee McHugh.
I abstain because actually I want the chief to enforce the laws on the lake. So I actually agree with you, with the mayor with regard to that. But I unfortunately would have preferred this to be done on Tuesday, where we could all agree on the correct wording and the correct letter of the law. So then it would be unanimous, but so I'll abstain.
Thank you very much. The ayes have it. All right. And I appreciate your comments. I think they were productive on this, and I think we can work with them moving forward, like Trustee Cohen said. Okay, so next online that I have is the CapEx list update and assignments. Is that what you guys have?
Yes.
Okay, who would like to run with this one?
I will, and it'll be very brief.
Thank you.
We had met a couple times on the capital list. We prioritized, we came up with for everybody's refreshing everyone's memory, we came up with a very robust capital list. We prioritized things that need to be done in the very short term. We listed them and we assigned who's going to be doing each. I sent out, unfortunately, earlier today, but you guys knew about it, earlier today, the list of capital projects and who was assigned to it. It's in the minutes from the March meeting or something like that. I forget the date of the meeting. So number one, I don't know if anybody has any comments on the list that I sent out. I thought, Paul, you had a comment on that list.
Just a question. I saw my name next to Trustee McHugh's for doing I&I. I didn't think that was on my project list. I don't necessarily tremendously object to it, but.
I think you've been meeting on it right now, so that's why you were put on it. But you can be taken off and I can be put in that place because I'm supposed to be doing the financing. But it's a bit.
You're doing the financing of it.
Right, I'm doing the financing.
So, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I think Paul's correct because we've been dealing with the DEC and the sewer plant flows. But given the bid results are going to be due this Friday, then we're going to have an engineer assessment of the bids and a recommendation. We're really springboarding from the more nuts and bolts to the funding of that issue and dealing with the lawyers and the EFC with regard to funding. So I think it's a natural pass off for Paul if he wants to jettison from that and Maureen to pick up the slack.
Okay, is that agreeable?
Sounds good.
Okay, please continue, Trustee Cohn.
Okay, so are there any comments on any of the items in the list? But other than we just talked about. Okay.
I'm just curious what health emergency is. I'm listed on that. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. I just don't recall what it is.
I think it was the whole COVID matter. It was lumped in with this, so that can be deleted.
Okay.
That can be deleted.
We were successful, and my main goal is to continue to keep us safe. And that's what I have to report on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I, Alan, you just kind of went through it. Did you just want to briefly say what's going on with the I again?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to beat a horse. Obviously, we've got, you know, the last bit of the I project to hopefully resolve some of the issues that we're having at the sewer plant in terms of excess flow, and which exceed our speedies permit. We certainly hope these are successful. In terms of scope of work, we're hoping to lock this down and actually get work starting by the end of July, early August, and it'll take between 6 weeks to 2 months to actually from starting it to completion. So that's our game plan with regard to that. With regard to the other issues, obviously John Ledwith mentioned the leak detection. What we're trying to do is get shelf-ready projects so we can go after grant funding if the federal and state government comes out with additional programs. We're currently waiting for that. They usually come out in July with regard to that, and that's what we're doing with regard to the pipe under Tuxedo Lake and what we approved 2 trustee meetings ago. So that's where we stand on those things.
Thank you, Trustee McHugh. Trustee Cohen, would you like to move on, or do you feel you need more discussion on these items?
Well, no, I think there's some other items to quickly, people should be updating us on. Or because I think we had talked about having an update at the June.
Sure.
So lakes management, I think you'll be talking about that, Trustees McHugh and Gluck in a few minutes.
Yep, good. Paul's got the approval.
Right. So that one we'll be talking about. The wall on Summit Road, there's that wall, Mayor.
Yes.
And
yeah, I'm prepared to give you a report. Okay. I have done research based on our past experiences in terms of who was supposed to pay for the wall, the village or the resident. And I've learned that one of the guides is, do you have to cut and fill the road? And if you do have to cut and fill the road, it typically belongs to the village. If you do not have to cut and fill the road and there is a wall along that road, it typically belongs to the resident. Now, that said, there's an analysis needs to be done to determine which it is. And then I think we can move from there. Other than that, I have no additional information.
Do we just have a question? Do we have, do we look at the boundaries and
yeah, I think you do. And what's funny is, you know, if you look at the original donation of the roads to the village from the TPA, they did not donate the walls. And when you look, for example, at a prior situation we had on the East Lake Road Causeway, the dispute was over the fact that certain maps showed lines that didn't match others. And it just seems to me that they should be checked, but they may not fit into one of these categories just because of the way they were surveyed years ago. So, but I'm happy to look into that, and I can give you a report next meeting.
Excellent.
Next June, the July meeting.
Oh, sewer on Pond 3, water quality. I think that's been resolved.
Yeah, that was resolved. Lake sampling was taken. Nothing was untoward was found. So yeah, we are monitoring that, and that's part of the scope of the work with our lakes manager in terms of water sampling and testing.
Excellent. Okay, you mentioned leak detection. So then emergency water plan. So this was, again, just to refresh everyone's memory, this is what happens if our water system shuts down. So Trustee Barnett.
So I'll take the beginning of that. We are collecting some data in our data collection state right now in terms of usage and in terms of what some potential backup possibilities might be, principally being, how much water can we truck in here if we had to, and what will that do to enhance our ability to continue to keep the water flowing. It's as I said before, it's not likely to be a pretty picture. So this is a contingency we hope we will never have to face.
Trustee Barnett, did you want to add anything?
Nope.
Okay, so I&I financing, I think you touched on this, Trustee McHugh, but we're waiting for the bids to be opened, but the application has to be filed, and unfortunately it has to be approved by the board of the EFC, I believe it is, and
Right.
that they may be, traditionally they take off the month of August, so there may be a bit of a delay getting financing, basically, because pretty much everything on the I&I project has been delayed because of various issues with I think it was the DEC. So we'll hopefully be able to get on their docket in the fall. Alan, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not as pessimistic. I think
okay.
We've got it lined up. We've got all the board authorizations in place. The EFC on the grant side's already in place. The scope of work with regard to the engineering work is outside the funding, so we don't have to be concerned about the minority women-owned business element of it. And I think Weston and Sampson has it lined up really quickly, so it'll be a quick turnaround. So it'll be incumbent upon us to push our legal team to move it forward to get the approvals at the EFC. So I'm a little bit more optimistic than you, but maybe I'm naive.
All right, Trustee Cohen, can we move on to the next matter?
Yeah.
All right, tax cert. I've asked Brian, if he's here, or John to introduce it.
No problem. I don't think Brian's here, so.
Please.
Yeah, I apologize.
No, it's
I had it
okay.
up. Okay, so this resolution is authorizing special counsel to represent the Village of Tuxedo Park in a tax certiorari litigation. Whereas the Village of Tuxedo Park is currently represented by special counsel Ferrick Nugent McCartney, PLLC, to represent the village in certain legal matters. And whereas the village requires legal representation in a tax certiorari proceeding filed against the assessor of the Village of Tuxedo Park and village entitled Hume R. Steyer versus Assessors, Board of Assessors, Board of Assessment Review. The village board requires legal counsel to undertake representation of the village in this proceeding. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the above whereas clauses are incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, special counsel Ferrick Nugent McCartney, PLLC, is authorized to appear and defend the village and shall be compensated for all services performed for the village with regard to the aforesaid proceeding at the hourly rate of $225. Such services will be paid separate and apart from those services for which special counsel has previously been retained to handle for the village. Section 3, this resolution shall be effective immediately.
All right, thank you. I accept your wording, and I would like to now open the floor if there's any questions.
I've got a question, is which one of your stable of lawyers will be representing the village with regard to this matter?
Alex Shaw. Alex Shaw does tax certiorari proceedings for many of our clients' municipalities. He's very good at it, and so he will be leading the charge on this one.
Any additional
And
questions?
so if any particular board member is, serves as say, some kind of liaison, he may contact, please let me know and I'll connect you with Alec, and so that he can be a direct line for you.
Yeah, I think it would probably make sense, subject to the mayor's agreement, that Paul and I be the point people on that, just because we were intimately involved on the Board of Assessor review and doing all the comparative work.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is town, though, isn't it?
No, this is village, I believe.
So he's gone through the town and now he's to us.
That is correct.
Okay, yeah, I have no issue with that. Paul, do you have any, sorry, Trustee Gluck, do you have an issue with that?
Having jettisoned one project, I'll just take on the other. That's fine.
Very good. All right, so may I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Trustee Gluck?
Aye.
Trustee Barnett?
Aye.
Trustee McHugh?
Aye.
Trustee Cohn?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. All right, let's move on. We are at the near 2020 proposal. That, I guess, would be handled by Trustee Gluck or Trustee McHugh.
I will take it. That's okay. So this is our 2020 proposal from Northeast Aquatic Research, they otherwise known as NEAR. They are our lakes consultant. They do our sampling, they do the analysis. Last year they did a aquatic plant survey and a report and a lake quality report as a result of that sampling that contains lots of useful information. The current year, the total project cost for last year was about $54,000. This year's cost under the proposal is about $44,000. The principal differences are some of the surveying was cut back because we didn't need to do 2 surveys in each lake. Water quality sampling was extended to November because the consultant thought that he needed to get a better idea of what the what various measurements were later in the year when the water got colder, which is missing from all our prior CSLAP data when that was being done. I should point out as an aside, because of COVID, CSLAP is not being done this year, and so the consultant will be standing in a lot of those measurements. The cost is split about $29,500 in the water budget. That's activities that take place on Tuxedo Lake, and the balance is in the general budget. And in terms of the budget estimates, you remember in April, as part of the budget process, we took a guess at what the breakdown would be on a $44,000 project. The numbers come out a little bit higher on the lake side, a little bit lower on the general side. So we will probably be able to make up that difference on in the water side of the lakes management budget by shifting around some of the allocations to Tuxedo Lake Procelicor treatment if we get that far to do it. That's a difference that will have to make up, but I think I'm confident we'll be able to do that. Any question?
Let me move on to the other trustees. Trustee Cohn, would you like to comment?
I go with the experts, and I'm in favor of the proposal.
Trustee McHugh?
Overall, I support this. I mean, Paul, I think maybe you can talk to, I believe he was there today, right? Putting the barrier curtains in, or did he delay it again?
No, he was there for sampling today. So we can segue into the other things that's happening in lake management, which I think you were just asking.
Right. Yeah, I think that might be constructive to get people to get a sense of what he's doing, what the goals are. Obviously, we're not doing CSLAP this year, so the scope, whilst we're paying him less, the scope's changed of what he needs to do as a result of us being unable to do CSLAP.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Barnett?
I agree with what Paul said. I think he and Alan have done an excellent job with this, and I agree with the conclusion.
To hire, you're saying, to approve the contract. That's what you agree with?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Gluck, I have a question. Are things like the boom and putting in the Procelicor and the cost of the Procelicor, et cetera, Are those in addition to the contract?
Yes, so we have separately contracted for boom placement, actually 3 boom placements. One in front of Tuxedo Dam, although there's some discussion now of putting that actually in a pool area that's right in the dam because it's easier to use, but let's not get down in the weeds. So essentially one boom to prevent fragmentation from Eurasian water milfoil from going over the dam. One boom that is now in place at the south end of pond number 3 to catch fragments that might slip by the first one, or today to catch any fragments that go by because that first boom isn't in place. And ultimately a 3rd boom at the north end of pond number 3 to prevent fragments from going into the Weewa. So that work is, in place and ongoing.
All right, thanks. I guess my view is that I'm fed up to my ears with the constant spending on surveys, lake managers. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And here we are with milfoil that's been growing for 10 years. I don't think we're addressing the problem. I think maybe we think it's, cool to have a lake manager, but we know what to do and we're not doing it. They've made their recommendations. I'd be totally against re-upping this. If they want to do some a la carte work, fine. But to need another survey, I mean, how many times do we need to be told that we can either use dash or chemical? And why put out another 50 grand? That's my view. So do you have a resolution, Paul, that you want to?
Let me try and be responsive to that, please.
Sure.
So if you look at what the proposal is, very little of this proposal goes toward things that are associated with Eurasian water milfoil. What we know about the milfoil is that it's there. We annually survey it. We know where it is. The survey will be important if and when we get to a stage where we can chemically treat. But the most of this work that's being done is much more directed toward water quality and ensuring that we continue to have a safe water source for our drinking water. If you remember from all the CSLAP data, we know that our phosphorus levels are increasing. We know that there are issues with the lake that are not headed in a good direction. And what we decided a couple of years ago is that it's worth getting and collecting this sort of data in order to have a better understanding of what's really happening water quality wise with the lake, as opposed to the weeds that are on the lake.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate what NEAR does, but to say that we need an additional survey to put chemical on the milfoil I don't think is even a realistic approach. I mean, the guys that are putting it in, that are in the rowboat, they know where it is, and it comes out, you can see it. I mean, every year it grows, and it's coming in now, and you see it. I don't want to pay for a survey to tell me where the milfoil is. We all know where the milfoil is. And in terms of quality of drinking water, look, we have a water processing plant that has to report to the Department of Health. We have very good water. The rest is theoretical. Hey, you guys better do this or that, or someday you might not have great water. We also know milfoil is not great for the lake. It's not great for the lake environment. I don't know what we think we're going to get from paying another lake manager or another survey. Let's just get this done. I mean, it's nothing against you guys at all. I'm just saying from where I sit, this is what I'm seeing. We've spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 10 years doing surveys, hiring 3 or 4 different lake managers. And guess what? Every year we've sat by while the milfoil grows to a point where it's completely unacceptable and it needs to be eradicated. I don't need a lake manager to tell me that.
And I don't think the lake manager is telling you that. So again,
well, they did recommend we use chemical or dash.
Mm-hmm.
All right, look, I've said enough. I don't want to take any more time up. Paul, do you have a resolution?
I believe there is one. Resolved that the proposal from Northeast Aquatic Research LLC for 2020 lakes monitoring and analysis in the aggregate of $44,050 be approved, and that the mayor be authorized to sign the proposal, and that $14,566 of such expenses be allocated to lakes management general budget, and $29,484 of such expenses be allocated to the lakes management water budget. Do I have a second?
Second, I'll take the roll. Trustee Gluck.
Aye.
Trustee Barnett.
Aye.
Trustee McHugh.
Aye.
Trustee Cohn.
Aye.
And I'm a no. All right, let's move on. The ayes have it. What do we have on the agenda next? Okay, we've got the climate smart communities. Paul, would you like to briefly address that briefly? Because we're really running a long time here.
So New York State has a program called Climate Smart Communities. About 300, slightly in excess of 300 communities participate in the program. It's designed to encourage climate smart activities by communities. Joining the program does not cost anything, carries no commitment along with it, doesn't require you to expend any dollars, but the program does offer a variety of methods of support for climate smart activities. There is technical services you can obtain. There is enhanced grading on grant applications if you're a climate smart community or on the road to becoming a climate smart community. And it allows you to get credit and potentially funding for things you might otherwise do. All that's required initially is to adopt a resolution. It's called the Climate Smart Communities Pledge. The pledge is sort of like the Pledge of Allegiance. You recite it. You don't get into trouble for violating it. It enunciates a set of principles around climate smart activities. The town of Tuxedo has adopted the resolution and has formed a climate smart task force, which includes a number of village residents. The thinking on the proposal is that it would make sense for those village residents to form the core, or actually the Climate Smart Task Force, which is a sort of advisory committee to the village, and that would enable us to leverage knowledge and expertise across both municipalities and potentially obtain credit for not only for each of us doing something, but for each of us doing something together, because there's, as we know, there's additional crediting and support available for municipal sharing.
Thank you. Can you give me an example or two of how we could comply with these regulations or advice based on anything we've done here tonight? Would it affect anything we've done tonight? Or can you think of anything how this would affect things we've done in this year?
This tonight, potentially. I mean, you have to look at these and see how they fit into the 100 or 110 or so potential actions that are listed on the DEC website, for which you get credit for being, being along the road on the CSC process. Could, for example, get credit potentially for the energy audit that we have done in the past along some of our buildings. And we could potentially have greater access to credit or funding for other energy audits that we might do. So it doesn't prevent you from doing anything, but it possibly opens the door to some support and or assistance in doing things.
Thank you. You know, I know the town is into it. We're a very small village, and we only have residential. I'm sure that the advantages we might get would be extremely limited because we only have residential. And I think it's just another layer of bureaucracy that we don't need to go through. I have plenty that we have to face. So I wouldn't be supporting it, but that's just me. Let's go around. Trustee McHugh?
Yeah, I guess my question is, would it be advantageous for us to be a member with regard to grant opportunities, i.e., you know, sewer and or water grants? Is it something, I know they use a cumulative score where you have to tick boxes, bases, demographics, commercial versus non-commercial, and things along those lines. Would this be beneficial for us in that regard?
So I think I included with the package that went around a collection of grants that were done in 2019 that if you look through, some of them are to small villages, as small as we are, or close to as small as we are. Some are larger. So that was in 2019. In 2020, they weren't doing those grants anymore. Will they do them in 2021? I don't know. But if you're not, if you're not there participating, and they do them, you're sort of behind the curve already. So.
All right, so thank you. I mean,
available, but certainly it makes more available than you otherwise would have available. And again, with no downside and the ability to have some additional volunteer citizens looking for opportunities, which has sort of been a challenge for us in trying to find grant opportunities, something that we have, collectively not been as successful, I think, as we hoped we might have been. This is another avenue to go down that path.
Thank you. I see, for example, them coming in and saying, we'll give you points if you change your old lead pipes to new modern pipes, or we'll give you something for your sewer if you, buy a brand new high-end sewer, that's the most efficient one you can get. And I don't really see much opportunity for us. I, of course, believe in being climate friendly. I just don't know if this is overkill for us. Let me move on to Trustee Barnett.
I think this is part of the increasing consciousness in the country of environmental, social, and ethical considerations. I know that Joanne has been heavily involved in this effort with the Episcopal Church and things like UNPRI and the whole host of international and national organizations. It's all part of gathering momentum, and it's becoming increasingly important. So I think I wholeheartedly support us doing this.
Thank you. One thing I'm concerned about, Paul, is that it will have to become part of our local law code someday in the future. And we already have SECRA, and it's just one more handicap to buy a property here and put a house up. Our building code already requires all the energy efficient materials.
So let's backtrack again. It doesn't require us to do anything in our code, doesn't require us to spend anything, doesn't require us to do anything. It's a layer of support in order to potentially look at projects at our option for what we might want to do if we want to do them.
Okay, Trustee Cohen.
So Paul, what is the downside?
I can't find one.
And there's upside.
Yes,
Potential.
in my view.
And
Potential.
is there any bureaucratic red tape or like reporting that has to be done, or anything that's going to involve time from the village employees?
So in order to go down the road, you need to have a steering committee. And that steering committee has to meet a couple of times a year, I think at a minimum. There's some minimum meeting requirement, and some paperwork has to be filed with the DEC with respect to that. Now, meaningfully speaking, if you're going to have, a potential project, it will require some interaction with John or Jeff, because they're the people that know the village. So yes, I think there's some overhead there in terms of allocation of village time, but that again is totally within, the control of the village.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
trustee, I'm sorry, please.
No,
Trustee
thank you.
Cohen. All right, trustee Gluck, I recommend that we read the resolution, and get a second, and then there's more discussion. We can have that, and then we could call the vote.
My, it's such a long resolution. Hold on.
Is it?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna go get some coffee.
Resolved, whereas the Village of Tuxedo Park, County of Orange, hereinafter local government, believes that climate change poses a real and increasing threat to our local and global environment and is primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels. And whereas the effects of climate change will endanger our infrastructure, economy, and livelihoods, harm our farms, orchards, and ecological communities, including native fish and wildlife populations, spread invasive species and exotic diseases, reduce drinking water supplies and recreational opportunities, and pose health threats to our citizens. And whereas we believe that our response to climate change provides us with an unprecedented opportunity to save money, to build livable, energy-independent, and secure communities, vibrant innovation economies, healthy and safe schools, and resilient infrastructures. And whereas we believe that the scale of greenhouse gas emissions reductions required for climate stabilization will require sustained substantial efforts. And whereas we believe that even if emissions were dramatically reduced today, communities would be required to adapt to the effects of climate change for decades to come. It is hereby resolved that the Village of Tuxedo Park, County of Orange, in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to a changing climate, adopts the New York State Climate Smart Communities Pledge, which comprises the following 10 elements. 1, build a climate smart community. 2, inventory emissions, set goals, and plan for climate action. 3, decrease energy use. 4, shift to clean renewable energy. 5, use climate smart materials management. 6, implement climate smart land use. 7, enhance community resilience to climate change. 8, support a green innovation economy. 9, inform and inspire the public. And 10, engage in an evolving process of climate action. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so would you like me to make the roll call, or are there any more comments? Trustee Gluck.
Aye.
Trustee McHugh.
I'm supportive of it. I looked at the grants and it's, I'm not sure what we're going to qualify for basis what I saw there. There were some drainage culverts and things like that. A lot of the other things were sidewalks and things along that, which I guess are green. So I guess it's incumbent upon us to come up with interesting solutions to those problems. So I'm a yes, sorry.
Okay, Trustee Cohen.
Yes.
Trustee Barnett.
Yes.
I am a no. The ayes have it. Okay, let's continue. We have the tree removal. I'm not sure who's on that. Is that you, Trustee McHugh?
No, it's John Ledwith. I believe it's with regard to the McCatherine property.
Yes. Correct.
But that's the extent of my knowledge of it. I hadn't seen that, and then all of a sudden it appeared on the agenda. So unfortunately, I'm not equipped to talk about it, and I had some questions about it since the numbers were rather sizable. So if John's not here, I'd suggest we talk about it on Tuesday.
John, are you here?
I am here if you have any questions.
Okay, so are they saying that a village tree fell onto their house?
Not yet. The McCathern property backs up to village property near the Fox Hill track. And there's approximately several large trees that are looming over their garage and also just their general property. And they asked Jeff and I about it about 4 or 5 months ago. We looked at it. It's too big of a job for the village DPW to handle. So I started to get some estimates. I also inquired to see if Hogland Energy, that's the company that's working with Orange and Rockland on the electric upgrades, if they would be able to assist us. They declined to do the work because of the complexity of the job. At least 4 or 5 of the trees are quite tall, and they're also in an area that's quite hard to access, given the placement of the McCathern garage and some other landscaping features which just make it difficult.
John, did you get any prices?
Yes, I did send an email to the board last Friday afternoon. I did get 3 prices. Ira Wicks came in at $20,145. Green Valley Landscaping was $9,300, and Top Notch Tree Removal was $3,784.
Maybe if we don't cut them down, we can get some points for the climate thing we just voted on. So, sorry to be a jerk.
I think part of this was done under the advisement of council that we should look into reducing the liability that these trees do present.
Well, that's quite a steep number. Have we negotiated with them yet, the homeowner?
No, I have not discussed any of this with the homeowner. I told them I needed to get a few prices and also discuss it with your board.
My recommendation would be we make a meeting, phone meeting, we negotiate, we discuss the price and see, what we can do there before we make any decision. But I'll leave that to the trustees. Trustee Gluck?
To address that point, I would need to go into executive session, I think.
Okay. Trustee McHugh?
I'm not sure what Trustee Gluck wants to go into executive session about this, but I guess my question to John are these apples to apples comparisons, given we've got a 6-fold price difference between the lowest and the highest? Is this removing all the brush and chipping it, or is it just removing the couple of trees that are leaning towards the structure?
All the trees were marked clearly before I showed any of the contractors the trees. So they all looked at the same trees. They were all asked to cut down the trees and also either remove everything or chip it, into the woods.
So I guess my question is, this is woodland. Why do we need to do any of the additional? We need to remove the potential liability, which is the tree falling on the McCathern property. I don't see what our obligation is that we should be cleaning woodland by chopping it up versus just letting Mother Nature and the trees just rot over time. I don't know if that's a correct or incorrect, but it's a question.
Trustee Barnett?
I don't feel comfortable discussing this without executive session.
All right, so if we were to go to executive session, what reason would we have for this to go into executive session?
I think
they're very strict rules. I'm just asking what you want to ride the coattails of to get in.
I think, Mayor, subject to council's advice here tonight, I think we have a potential claim by a homeowner for liability, and we are talking about how to resolve that potential litigation/liability.
So you believe it's a potential litigation?
I should think.
Okay, that will qualify. Maureen Cohn, Trustee Cohn?
Yeah, at this point, I guess we should go to executive session.
Okay, done. All right, moving on. We have the public comment section is now open. Anybody left through all this that wants to make a comment?
Please.
Hi, it's Michelle
Is that, oh,
Lindsay.
is that you? Yeah.
Right.
Can you, oh, your mic's, can you turn your mic off? I mean on?
Can you hear me? It's Michelle.
Michelle, where are you?
I'm
Michelle Lindsay. Hi, how are you?
great, thank you. I had an earlier meeting, so I arrived late. Were you able to announce the June 20 Moving Tuxedo Forward event earlier in the meeting?
Yes, in fact, Trustee Gluck did that.
Oh, why, thank you. And I hope everybody can join us at 10 o'clock. Just go to www.tuxedogov.org and click on the website.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you all there.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. Any other comments?
It's Joanne Hanson.
Yes. Hi, Joanne, please.
Just a really quick one, and I'm sure you'll be discussing it in the future, and I know it's late. In terms of the speed limit, there is a couple of places where it's really narrow and dangerous. One of them is Antio going up to Summit, and I think it's important to drop the speed limit there and mark it. Another one is that twist with the mirror going up Summit. But just consider, I think there's sort of two philosophies of speed limits. Mine is you set a speed limit and you drive that. I don't go over 30. Setting it down to 25, I'm afraid would have everyone, probably including me, the 5 miles over. So I think that's just philosophically to think about how you want to deal with it. To me, it's deal with the particularly narrow and places where people should slow down and mark those. So
thank you very much.
Throw that in.
Anyone else?
Hi, Jake Matthews here.
Jake.
Thanks. I think a couple of people, in particular, Trustee Cohn made the point before that with regards to the speed limit. There may not be a lot of people speeding from a code perspective. They're not over 30. But when you're standing on the street and a car goes by at 29 on a small road, it feels like they're speeding. So in theory, by law, they're not doing anything wrong. And that may be the reason why we don't have a lot of, efficacy with regards to radar, which is fine. But it may have to do with the actual speed limit we have. I can tell you, I think, on Clubhouse Road, there's a sign that says 15 miles an hour. So in theory, the case could be made that maybe there are some smaller streets where speed limits should be brought down even lower. There's also a concern and a thought to having too much signage all over the park and what that does to the look of things as well. And then the only other point I'll bring to mind is these digital signs that tell you how fast you're going. I believe they are effective. I'm just curious, and it doesn't have to be answered here, is the type of equipment. There are ones that are very large that almost look trailer drawn and get hitched onto a vehicle, and they're big and they're unsightly. And then there are some that sort of look like they're hooked right onto a street sign, which are a bit smaller. So I'd just be curious as to which ones the village is speccing out and what they're going to look like around the village. So
yeah,
those are my comments.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah. And I intend to do that. I will share that information with you. Anyone else?
Jay Rushcott here.
Hi, Jay.
Hi. Sorry I missed the early part of the meeting. I was with Michelle. Just to speak to the climate smart, as was pointed out, the town is a climate smart community. It is pretty much no pain, and the opportunities for grants, if we decide we want to do something like strap solar panels to the DPW building or something like that, are truly there.
Thank you. And we have passed it. So yes, let's hope it works out and gives us some benefits. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to move on. We can approve BOT minutes. And if somebody would like to send me the resolutions for that, I'm happy to do it. Otherwise, I do not have them in my possession. Does anyone have them in their possession? Debbie, are you able to forward them to us?
I have them, Mayor. Would you like me to read them?
If you don't mind, thank you.
Not at all. Move that the Board of Trustees approve the minutes of the March 2nd, 2020 Special Board of Trustees meeting.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Motion that the Board of Trustees approve the minutes of the March 13th, 2020 Special Board of Trustees meeting.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion that the Board of Trustees approve the minutes of the March 19th, 2020 regular Board of Trustees meeting held via Zoom.
Second, may I have a roll, please? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Okay, yep, ayes have it.
Motion that the Board of Trustees approve the minutes of the March 31, 2020 Special Board of Trustees meeting and budget workshop held via Zoom.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, is that it, Paul?
That's it.
Thank you. Okay, so you added something to adjourn into executive session. Would you like to then add that and read off the resolution to go into executive session from the public meeting? And everyone here should know that we'll be coming back into the public session if you want to wait around. Paul, would you like to do that?
Motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss the employment of particular persons, collective bargaining negotiations, and front gate safety and security issues, and potential litigation.
Sorry, can we just have a discussion? I think a point of fact, one board resolution was approved when the mayor wasn't in attendance throughout it. So can that be approved or not? I don't know if it makes a difference. He initially attended, then he left.
What are we talking, which, a particular person, you mean?
Which
No.
meeting?
I'm talking about the board resolutions. Everybody approved all of them. One of them, you didn't attend the full meeting. I'm just wondering, as for a procedural point of
I only voted on 2 matters.
Okay,
as you know, the mayor only has to vote on to break a tie. I voted against the new NEAR agreement, and I voted against the community, green.
Okay, sorry, you're misunderstanding me. I'm referring to the motions Paul referred to for the March Board of Trustee meetings. One meeting you were not in attendance.
Oh, okay.
Do you know which meeting it was?
Yeah, I'll abstain.
Okay, that's how we'll do it, and we'll back into it.
No problem. Okay,
I
so
second your motion going into executive.
So I'm going to second Paul's motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. So I guess we'll be sent into a private room.
Yes.
And thank you, everyone, if you're not coming back, and happy Father's Day.
Bear with me, those who I'm beaming up.
Are we beaming up?
Everyone, I see that everyone's still on the screen. We haven't gone into a break room yet, or haven't been invited. Will we, let's see. Okay, well, Brian's on.
Hold on, am I there?
You're here.
Oh, good. How'd I get there?
You
And we're
haven't
not in,
started
we're
the-
not in
you
the
have
room
not
yet.
started the breakout rooms yet.
We're not in the breakout room yet. We're still public.
There you go.
Here we go, Joan. the session?